3. The rays and man. Introductory remarks. 1. The ray of the solar system. 2. The planetary ray Earth. 3. The ray of the fourth kingdom. 4. The racial rays. 5. The rays in cyclic manifestation. 6. The nations and the rays. Chapter 3. The rays and man. Introductory remarks. I have now dealt with one of the basic problems confronting the race at this time. I interpolated my comments on the subject of sex at that particular point because it made a fitting conclusion to our study of the rays in connection with the animal kingdom. Man is a living entity, a conscious son of God, a soul, occupying an animal body. Here lies the point. He is therefore in the nature of a link, and a far from missing link. He unifies in himself the results of the evolutionary process as it has been carried on during the past ages, and he brings into contact with that evolutionary result a new factor, that of an individual self-sustaining, self-knowing aspect. It is the presence of this factor and of this aspect which differentiates man from the animal. It is this aspect which produces in humanity a consciousness of immortality, a self-awareness and a self-centeredness which make man truly to appear in the image of God. It is this innate and hidden power which gives man the capacity to suffer which no animal possesses, but which also confers on him the ability to reap the benefits of this experience in the realm of the intellect. This same capacity, in embryo, works out in the animal kingdom in the realm of the instincts. It is this peculiar property of humanity which confers upon it the power to sense ideals, to register beauty, to react sensuously to music, and to enjoy color and harmony. It is this divine something which makes of mankind the prodigal son, torn between desire for the worldly life, for possessions and experience, and the attractive power of that center, or home, from which he has come. Man stands midway between heaven and earth, with his feet deep in the mud of material life and his head in heaven. In the majority of cases his eyes are closed, and he sees not the beauty of the heavenly vision, or they are open but fixed upon the mud and slime with which his feet are covered. But when his open eyes are lifted for a brief moment, and see the world of reality and of spiritual values, then the torn and distracted life of the aspirant begins. Humanity is the custodian of the hidden mystery, and the difficulty consists in the fact that that which man conceals from the world is also hidden from himself. He knows not the wonder of that which he preserves and nourishes. Humanity is the treasure house of God. This is the great Masonic secret, for only in the human kingdom, as esotericists have long pointed out, are the three divine qualities found in their full flower and together. In man, God the Father has hidden the secret of life. In man, God the Son has secreted the treasures of wisdom and of love. In man, God the Holy Spirit has implanted the mystery of manifestation. Humanity, and humanity alone, can reveal the nature of the Godhead and of eternal life. To man is given the privilege of revealing the nature of the divine consciousness, and of portraying before the eyes of the assembled sons of God, at the final conclave before the dissolution, what has lain hidden in the mind of God. Hence the injunction before us today, in the words of the great Christian teacher, to possess in ourselves the mind of Christ. This mind must dwell in us and reveal itself in the human race in ever greater fullness. To man is given the task of raising matter up into heaven, and of glorifying rightly the form side of life through his conscious manifestation of divine powers. To portray adequately the wonder and the destiny of the human kingdom lies beyond my powers or the power of any human pen, no matter how great a man's realization may be, or his response to the beauty of God's world. Divinity must be lived, expressed and manifested, to be understood. God must be loved, known and revealed within the human heart and brain, in order to be intellectually grasped. The hierarchy of mystics, knowers and lovers of God, are manifesting this revealed truth in the world of the mental plane and of the emotional plane today. But the hour has now come when the manifestation of this reality can, for the first time and in truth, manifest itself on the physical plane in an organized group form, instead of through the instrumentality of the few inspired sons of God who have, in past ages, incarnated as the guarantee of the future possibilities. The hierarchy of angels and of saints, of masters, rishis and initiates, can now begin to organize itself in material form on earth, because today the group idea is rapidly gaining ground, and the nature of humanity is being better understood. The Church of Christ, hitherto invisible and militant, can now be seen slowly materializing and becoming the Church visible and triumphant. This is the coming glory of the Aquarian Age. This is the next revelation of the evolutionary cycle, and such is the task of the immediate future. The true drama of this triple relationship, of which physical sex, as we have seen, is but the symbol, will be enacted on a large scale in the life of the modern aspirant during the next 50 years. We shall see what is called symbolically, the birth of the Christ, or the second birth, taking place in many lives, producing on earth a large group of the spiritually new-born. They will be those who have brought together, consciously and within themselves, the two aspects of soul and body, and thus have consummated the mystical marriage. The aggregate of these individual happenings will produce a group activity of an analogous kind, and we shall see the emergence on the physical plane of the body of the Christ and the appearance of the manifested hierarchy. This is what is happening today, and all that we see going on around us in the world is but the pangs and the travail which precede this glorious birthing. We are now in the process of this consummation. Hence the difficulty and agony evidenced in the life of every true disciple who, embodying in himself symbolically the two aspects of Father-Mother, Spirit Matter, and having nurtured the Christ child through a period of gestation, is now giving birth to the Christ, within the animal stable and in the manger of the world. In the sum total of the general accomplishment will the entire group achieve and the Christ again appear on earth, incarnated this time in the many and not in the one personality. Yet each member of the group is a Christ in manifestation, and all together present the Christ to the world, and constitute a channel for the Christ force and life. It is indeed and in truth from glory to glory that we go. The past glory of individualization must fade away in that of initiation. The glory of the slowly emerging self-consciousness must be lost to sight in the wonder of the group consciousness of the race, and this the foremost thinkers and workers today most ardently desire. The glory that can be seen faintly shining in humanity, and the dim light which flickers within the human form, must give place to the radiance which is the glory of the developed Son of God. Only a little effort is needed, and the demonstration of a steady staying power, to enable those who are now on the physical plane of experience to evidence the radiant light, and to establish upon the earth a great station of light which will illumine the whole of human thought. Always there have been isolated light-bearers, down the ages. Now the group light-bearer will shortly be seen. Then shall we see the rest of the human family, who respond not yet to the Christ impulse, having their progress facilitated towards the path of probation. The work will still be slow, and much yet remains to be done, but if all the aspirants of the world and all the disciples at work in the world today will submerge their personal interests in the task immediately ahead, we shall have what I might pictorially call the opening of a great station of light on earth, and the founding of a powerhouse which will greatly hasten the evolution and elevation of humanity, and the unfoldment of the human consciousness. There has been for long in esoteric circles much idle and oft foolish talk anent the ray upon which a man may be found. People are as ignorantly excited over being told which is their ray as they are over the portrayal of their past incarnations. The new teaching on the rays vies with astrology in its interest. Like the Athenians, men are always searching for the novel and the unusual, forgetting that every new truth and every new presentation of an old truth carries with it the onus of increased responsibility. However, it is interesting to trace parallels, and it is becoming obvious to the careful student that the emergence of the teaching on the rays has happened at a time when the scientist is announcing the fact that there is not to be seen and known save energy, and that all forms are composed of energy units and are in themselves expressions of force. A ray is but a name for a particular force or type of energy, with the emphasis upon the quality which that force exhibits and not upon the force aspect which it creates. This is a true definition of a ray. The rays and the races. We have been told in the past teaching of the ageless wisdom that a human being is a triple aspect of energy, and that he is essentially a trinity, as is the deity. We speak of him technically as monad ego personality. We define him as spirit soul body. I should like to point out here that in studying the human family as a unit and as a whole, it also will be discovered to be essentially a monad, with 7 egoic groups, within which all souls, in incarnation and out of incarnation, find their place, and with 49 corresponding racial forms through which the 7 groups of souls cyclically express themselves. All souls work out their destiny in all races, but certain types predominate in certain racial forms. Where, then, is to be found any reason for racial predilections or antipathies? In the realization of the truth that we all, at some time, experience incarnation in all racial forms will come the knowledge that there is only unity. The subject may be clarified if we tabulate the teaching and the ray relationship to the races as follows. Ray full expression major influence ray I will. In the 7th root trace. 1st and 7th subraces. 1st ray souls. Perfection of plan. Ray 2. Love wisdom in the 6th root trace. 2nd and 6th subraces. 2nd ray souls. Perfected intuition. Ray 3. Intelligence. In the 5th root trace. 3rd and 5th subraces. 3rd ray souls. Aryan race. Perfected intellect. Ray IV. Harmony. In the 4th root trace. 4th and 6th subraces. 4th ray souls. Atlantean race. Perfected astralism. Perfected emotion. Ray V. Knowledge. In the 3rd root trace. 5th and 3rd subraces. 5th ray souls. Lemurian. Perfected physical. Ray 6. Devotion. In the 2nd root trace. 6th and 2nd subraces. 6th ray souls. Ray 7. Ceremonial in the 1st root trace. 7th and 1st subraces. Magic. 7th ray souls. Remember that this tabulation refers to the major ray cycles, and remember further that in every root trace you have a continuous mingling and intermingling of the rays with what might be called the constant, or dominating ray, which appears and reappears with greater frequency and potency than do the other rays. There is therefore a close correspondence between certain rays and certain races, with their subraces, and these are colored by these predominant ray influences. It is interesting also to interpret these ray influences, as I have expressed them, in terms of their quality leading to their objective, as follows. The first ray of will leads from latent purpose in the 1st race to the fulfilled evolutionary plan in the 7th race. The 2nd ray of love wisdom leads from love or divine desire in the 2nd race to full intuitional understanding in the 6th race. The 3rd ray of active intelligence leads from the latent mental awareness of Lemurian man in the 3rd race to the intellectual achievement of the Aryan race, the 5th race. The 4th ray of harmony through conflict leads from the period of that terrific balancing of forces in Atlantis, the 4th race, to the sanctified and free devotion of one-pointedness in the next or 6th race, with 2 lines of energy consummating in it. It marks the point of achievement of the monads of love, who arrive at the expression of love wisdom. The final race marks the point of achievement for the monads of will, just as the present Aryan race marks, and will mark, the achievement of the monads of intelligence. This warrants thought. It is a relative achievement, for this is the 4th round, but there is necessarily a high-water mark, if I might so call it, for each round. In the above 4 races you have the great period of the balancing of the forces for our humanity. The effect of the other 3 rays upon the Lemurian race and the 2 earlier and formless races need not here be considered by us. The nature of the consciousness of the forms found in those races, and the pressure exerted in them by the entity who informs the human family as a whole, are too abstruse for the average reader. He is mainly concerned with the races here enumerated, which summarize for him past and future achievement. Consequently, in dealing with the human family, we must endeavor to think in larger terms than those of the individual man as we know him. We must look upon humanity itself as an integrated entity, as a being, as a life in a form. In this unified form life, every human being is a cell, and the 7 races constitute the 7 major centers, with the polarization shifting ever into the higher centers, and the lower centers fading away into quiescence, until the time comes when all of the 7 will be coordinated and energized, at the end of the age. We might here make the following suggestions. Note this word, as to the relation between the races and the centers in the body of humanity. Races center expression 7th and final. Root trace. The head center. Will. Plan. 6th root trace. The next. The center between the eyebrows. Intuitive integration. 5th root trace. The present. The throat center. Creative power. Occult. 4th and past. Root trace. The solar plexus center. Psychic sensitivity. Mystic. 3rd and 1st. Human race. The sacral center. Physical appearance. Generation. 2nd and etheric. Race. The heart or vital center. Life forces coordinated. 1st race. The base of spine. The will to be, to exist. It is with only the last 4 evolving races that we shall concern ourselves, the first 4 dealt with in the above tabulation, for the first 3 races are too far off for anyone under the degree of initiate to grasp their mode of development, their type of consciousness, and their procedure towards their goal. The point I seek to emphasize is the necessity of seeing the picture whole, and not in terms of individual man. It may here be helpful if we note down our tabulation of certain points anent the human kingdom. As we did in connection with the 3 subhuman kingdoms. The human kingdom. Influences. 2 rays of divine energy are peculiarly active in bringing this kingdom into manifestation. These are 1. The 4th ray of harmony, beauty and unity, attained through conflict. 2. The 5th ray of concrete knowledge, or the power to know. The 4th ray is the ray par excellence which governs humanity. There is a numerical relation to be noted here, for the 4th creative hierarchy of human monads, the 4th ray, in this 4th round, on the 4th globe, the Earth, are extremely active. It is their close interrelation and interplay which is responsible for the emergence into prominence of humanity. In other rounds, humanity has not been the dominant evolution or the most important. In this round it is. In the next round, the dominant evolution will be that of souls on the astral level, and the Deva kingdom. Humanity now walks in the light of day, symbolically speaking, on Earth, and these 2 rays were responsible for the process of initiating the human evolution in this major cycle. Our objective is the harmonizing of the higher and the lower aspects, or principles, both in the individual and in the whole. This involves conflict and struggle, but produces eventually beauty, creative power in art, and synthesis. This result would not have been possible had it not been for the potent work of the 5th ray of concrete knowledge which, in conjunction with the 4th ray, produced that reflection of divinity we call a man. The human entity is a curious synthesis, on the subjective side of his nature, producing a fusion of life, of power, of harmonious intent and of mental activity. The following should be noted, for it is of profound psychological interest and import. Rays I, IV and V. Predominate in the life of humanity and govern with increasing power man's mental life and determine his mental body. Rays 2 and 6. Govern potently his emotional life and determine the type of his astral body. Rays 3 and 7. Govern the vital physical life and the physical body. Here you have, if you note carefully, a summation of the rays which govern and differentiate the life of the personality forms, and therefore bring in other factors which psychologists will have to consider as time goes on. You will see therefore that 1. The human soul or ego is found on one or other of the 7 rays, in one or other of the 7 ray groups. 2. The mind, nature and mental body are governed by the rays of purpose, of harmony or synthesis, and of knowledge. 3. The emotional nature and form are governed by the rays of love, wisdom and of idealistic devotion. 4. The vital life and physical body are governed by the rays of intelligence in matter and of organizing power. But in the midst of this complexity of rays and forces, the third and fifth rays hold paramount place, and govern the major cycles of the individual. He is controlled not only by his own ray cycles, determined by his egoic ray, and by the lesser cycles of the personality, but he comes also under the influence of the major and minor cycles in the ray life of humanity as a whole. Results. Through the active work of the two rays above discussed, we find the fourth ray producing eventually in man the appearance of the intuition. The fifth ray is responsible for the development in him of the intellect. Here again we find appearing in man his great gift of synthesis and his prerogative of unification, for, as earlier said, he blends in himself the qualities of three kingdoms in nature, including the one before and the one after his own. 1. The kingdom of souls, intuition. 2. The human kingdom, intellect. 3. The animal kingdom, instinct. Hence his problem, and hence his glory. We might also say that through the union of the positive intuition and the negative instinct the intellect is born, for man repeats in himself the great creative process as enacted in the universe. This is the inner creative side of consciousness, just as we have the outer creative side in the creation of forms. Process. In the human family, owing to the presence within the human physical form of a thinking entity, called by us the soul, the procedure followed in order to produce conscious control is that of adaptation. All forms in the three lower subhuman kingdoms are also subjected to the process of adaptation, but that is a group adaptation to environment, whereas in humanity we have the adaptation of the individual to his environment. The person who works consciously and intelligently at adapting himself to that situation and those conditions in which he finds himself is relatively rare. Conscious adapting of oneself to circumstances is the result of evolutionary development. The stages by which man arrives at this capacity may be enumerated as follows. 1. That unconscious adaptation to his environment of the man who is primarily an unintelligent animal. Low-grade savages are in this class, and many purely agricultural peasants who have not been subjected to modern education. The man at this stage is little better than an animal and is governed entirely by instinct. 2. An unconscious adaptation to environment carried on by the man who is beginning to evidence some faint flickers of mental perception. This is partly instinctual and is based on a growing self-love. There is more of the I consciousness in him, and rather less of group instinctual awareness. You find this growing self-realization in the low-grade slum dwellers, for instance, and in the petty criminal who is instinctual enough and bright enough to live by his wits and to show quickness in reactions and deftness manually. It is the stage of animal cunning. 3. A conscious and purely selfish adapting of oneself to the environment. In these cases, the man is definitely aware of his motives, they are consciously thought out and recognized, and the man makes the best of his circumstances. He forces himself to live as far as possible harmoniously in his surroundings. In this there is really good motive, but principally the man is governed by a desire for comfort, physical, emotional and mental, to such a degree that he will discipline himself into such a condition that he fits wherever he may be and can get on with anyone. 4. From this stage on the differentiations become so numerous that they are difficult to follow, being mixtures of pure selfishness, developed often to the nth degree, of a growing recognition of the group, of an awakening realization of the right of other people to a similar degree of comfort and harmony, and of a steady effort to adapt conditions of character and personality life, so that the purely selfish interests do no real damage to others, until we arrive at 5. The average really good man who is struggling to adapt himself to his surroundings, to his group relations and responsibilities in such a way that some measure of love can be seen. I refer not here to that instinctual love for family and children and herd which men share in common with the animals and which often breaks down when the loved individuals assert themselves. The tie is not strong enough to hold, and the motive is too selfish to resist the pull. I refer to that motivated love which recognizes the rights of others and consciously strives to adapt itself to those recognized rights whilst tenaciously holding on to the rights of the personality. 6. Then we have the work of adaptation as carried on by the aspirants of the world who are theoretically convinced of their group relation, of its paramount importance, and of the need of every personality to develop its powers to the fullest capacity in order to bring real value to the group and to serve adequately the group need. In true esotericism, there is no such motive as killing the personality, or of disciplining it to such an extent that it becomes a dead poor thing. The true motive is to train the threefold lower nature, the integrated personality, to the highest demonstration of its powers, latent or developing, in order that those powers may be brought to the helping of the group need, and the personality of the aspirant may be integrated into the group. Thereby the group life is enriched, the group potency is increased, and the group consciousness is enhanced. What is therefore to be seen going on in the life of the true aspirant today, his developing recognition of group responsibility, can also be seen going on in groups, in organizations and nations. Hence the many experiments. A process is going forward whereby these groups, large or small, are being subjected to a housecleaning, to a discarding of the rubbish of old and worn-out ideas, and to a period of disciplining and training which must precede all real group life. When this process is over, we shall have these groups approaching each other in a new and real spirit of cooperation, of religious fusion, and in an international attitude which will be new indeed. Then they will have something of a surer and greater value to offer to the whole. Within all these groups which are struggling towards this newer realization and integration, and which express what we might call the sixth stage of adaptation, are those who are already at the seventh stage. 7. Here we have complete unselfish adaptation to the group need and purpose. Those who have reached this point in their evolution are decentralized as regards their own personality life. The focus of their mental attention is in the soul and in the world of souls. Their attention is not directed towards the personality at all, except in so far as is needed to force it to adhere to group or soul purpose. These servers who are expressions of soul radiance and attractive power are knowers of the plan, and in every organization they constitute the new and slowly growing group of world servers. In their hands lies the salvation of the world. 8. The final group in this scale of adaptation is that of the higher initiates, the perfected elder brethren and great companions. They are perfectly adapted to their personalities, to each other and to world conditions, but as a group they are learning how to adapt the forces of nature, the energies of the rays and the potencies of the zodiacal signs to the world need and the world demand in a practical manner and at any particular time. It is here that the work of the disciples of the world, and of the higher types of aspirants, proves helpful as a field of experiment, and it is in the new group of world servers that the process of adaptation goes on. I have endeavored to outline these stages of the process of adaptation in terms of consciousness, viewing the subject therefore philosophically and psychologically. It should be remembered that this process, as it goes on in consciousness, produces, surely and inevitably, corresponding changes in mechanism and structure, and in sense perception through the apparatus of the body. On these changes I lay no emphasis in this treatise, for they are beautifully dealt with by modern science, which is steadily forging ahead in the right direction. I lay the emphasis upon consciousness as the predisposing factor, and on the developed sense of awareness which produces an inner demand for improved equipment. The improving of equipment as a result of the demand of consciousness is the secret of the evolutionary impulse, down the ages. This inner demand in man awakens the centers, and the awakening of the centers determines the response of the endocrine system, governs the nervous system in its threefold capacity, and also the bloodstream. Thus the outer form or mechanism is ever an indication of the point of evolution of the inner subjective and spiritual man. The secret. This is called, in esotericism, the secret of translation. I might bring the general concept underlying those words down to the intelligence of the average student by telling him that when a man really understands the elevating power of the aspiration, he can begin to work with the secret of translation. Students must lose sight of the foolish and erroneous idea that aspiration is really an emotional attitude. It is not. It is a scientific process, governing evolution itself. When given free scope and duly followed, it is the mode par excellence whereby the matter aspect, or the whole personality, is raised up into heaven. The effect of continued aspiration, when followed by right action, is to bring about three things. 1. A stimulation of the higher atoms of the three bodies. 2. The discarding, as a result of this stimulation, of those atomic substances which, when present, occultly hold the aspirant down to earth. 3. The increasing of the magnetic attractive power of the higher atoms, which draw to themselves atoms of high vibration to take the place of those of low vibration. One point I should like to make here, in order to correct an almost universal wrong mental attitude. Right atoms of high vibration are attracted into a man's body or bodies by the power of the united attraction of the atoms already present, and not primarily by the will of the soul, except in so far as that will acts upon the high-grade atoms already present and responsive. Aspiration is an activity of an occult and scientific nature, and is instinctual in substance itself. This point needs emphasis when instructing groups. It is an interesting side light thrown upon the phenomena of aspiration that the power to levitate the body, which is so oft today the subject of psychic interest and research, is dependent upon having produced a peculiar alignment of the personality through aspiration and an act of the will. It presupposes in the three bodies a certain percentage of atoms of the adequate vibrations and lightness. This secret of translation is the underlying cause of the caste system, and caste is a symbol of translation. In the last analysis, souls pass from caste to caste as they translate their bodies. The clue to the translation is to be found in the fact that no act of translation ever involves one body alone, and no passing on and up into another dimension, into another state of consciousness and another caste, ever takes place unless an alignment has been produced between, for instance, a. the physical body and the emotional body, b. these two and the mental body, c. these three and the soul, d. these four and the group of world servers. In these four alignments we have the esoteric parallels of which the outer caste system is the prostituted symbol. Ponder on this, for the caste system is universal in the world. It is when the third alignment has been truly accomplished and when the light of the fourth constituent to the relationship dominates the inherent light of the other three, that the objective of man's evolution is reached. This brings us to the point next to be considered. Purpose. This purpose is the transfiguration. This is the esoteric goal set before humanity. This was the tremendous event which was enacted before humanity by the greatest of all the sons of God in his own body, whom I and all true disciples regard as the master of all the masters, the Christ. What shall I say about this culminating event for which the entire personality of man waits? This third great initiation marks a crisis in the initiatory work, and produces a further synthesis experienced in the life of the spiritual man. Up to the third initiation, man has been occupied with the process of fusing soul and body into one unity. After the third initiation, and owing to an event which takes place, man is oriented towards, and becomes occupied with, a further fusion in consciousness, that of spirit-soul-body. I speak of a fusion in consciousness. The unity is ever there, and man in evolution is really becoming aware of that which already exists. Divisions. These are 5 in number from the standpoint of this treatise on esotericism. They can here be only briefly indicated, as elucidation of them would involve too much. 1. The racial divisions. These can be considered in 2 ways. A. From the standpoint of modern esoteric science. B. From the standpoint of the secret doctrine, with its septenary divisions of mankind and its 49 subdivisions. 2. The division of humanity into 7 main ray types, which might be enumerated as follows. A. The power type. Full of will and governing capacity. B. The love type. Full of love and fusing power. C. The active type. Full of action and manipulating energy. D. The artistic type. Full of the sense of beauty and creative aspiration. E. The scientific type. Full of the idea of cause and results. The mathematical type. F. The devotee type. Full of idealism. G. The business type. Full of organizing power. Given to ritualistic ceremony. 3. The 12 astrological groups. These we shall consider in dealing with the rays and the zodiac, and so shall not touch upon them here. 4. The division of human beings into 3 esoteric groups, A. Those unawakened to the I consciousness. These are called esoterically the darkened sparks. B. Those awakened to the condition of individuality. These are called the flickering lights. C. Those awakened to the knowledge of the soul. These are called the radiant sons of light. 5. The division of humanity into 3 types of aspirants. A. Those watched from a distance by the guiding hierarchy. B. Those awakened by and attracted to the hierarchy. C. Those who, from the angle of the personality, belong to the world of forces, but are awakened souls whose consciousness is being integrated into that of the hierarchy. These are the new group of world servers. To these 3 last groups the hierarchy itself may well be added. The table as a whole shows the main divisions into which esoteric psychology divides humanity, and if you study it with care you will note how all-inclusive it is. I commend it to modern psychologists for study. Objective agency. In the case of the human being, in whom the senses, slowly developed in the lower kingdoms, are already functioning, the outer agency whereby he grows is the world of experience, the tangible physical plane world. There he dwells in the flesh, and it is for him an adequate field of unfoldment. In the process of developing group consciousness he finds that multiplicity of contacts which is needed to awaken his response to his environment. This environment itself is part of the life and expression of deity, and through its means he arrives at a knowledge of some aspects of God's manifestation. Using the 5 senses, and working with earth, air, fire and water, he thereby gathers to himself all that is available for his use, and works in, and with, and through the outer world of daily living. Subjective agency. Here we find the mind being employed as an organ of sense, as a synthetic or common sense, and as an instrument of discovery by means of which a man unfolds the truly human consciousness. Through the use of the mind, he learns to protect himself, to guard his interests, and to preserve his identity. Through the use of the mind, he begins to discriminate and to cultivate slowly a sense of values which enables him eventually to lay the emphasis upon the ideal and the spiritual, and not upon the material and the physical. Quality. This quality is the development of sattva or rhythm within the human kingdom. This is really harmonious response to vibration, and leads to the integration of the unit in the whole and to the production of that understanding, which will enable the man to eliminate all barriers in his consciousness, and to render, simply and naturally, a rhythmic and complete response to all conditions and states of awareness. Let it ever be remembered that the secret of the quality of humanity, if I may use so cumbrous a phrase, is the power to identify the human consciousness with all other forms of consciousness and of awareness, with all forms of unconscious and instinctual response, and with all forms of the superconscious or divine sense of being. This can ultimately be done at will. We must now begin what really constitutes an outline of the new psychology. This will work out to its fulfillment and true usefulness in the Aquarian Age. It will then become the basic and fundamental science of that age, just as electrical science, the electricity of matter, is the basic achievement of the Piscean Age. What we are really going to consider are the influences which make a man what he is, and which determine the quality of his appearance. This appearance must be studied in terms of the entire integrated personality, and not just from the outer and objective physical condition. The influences which determine him are his own personal and soul rays which play upon him and affect his consciousness, finding entrance into his form equipment through the energy units of which that form is made. Other determining influences are also the solar, cosmic and environing factors which likewise play upon him. It might here be asked, what are the differences between the influences which are ray influences and those which are of an astrological nature, such as the rising sign, or the governing planets? The energies which astrologically affect a human being are those which play upon him as a result of the apparent progress of the Sun through the heavens, either once every 25,000 years or once every 12 months. Those that constitute the ray forces do not come from the 12 constellations of the zodiac, but emanate primarily from a world of being and of consciousness which lies behind our solar system, and which themselves come from the 7 constellations which form the body of manifestation of the One about whom naught may be said. Our solar system is one of these 7 constellations. This is the world of deity itself, and of it a man can know nothing until he has passed through the major initiations. When we come later to study the zodiac and its relation to the rays, we shall work this out more carefully and so make the idea clearer. It is with the ray influences that we are dealing here, and not with the zodiacal. One of the first things we need to grasp, as we study man and the rays, is the large number of these ray influences which play upon him, and which form him, and enliven him, and make him the complexity he is. It would be wise for us to enumerate them one by one and consider them for a while. There is no real reason for bewilderment in this connection. As time progresses and the rays are more widely studied, man's relation to them will be subjected to careful analysis, and there will then be possible a wide checking up of information and of facts. There will later come a tabulation and an understanding of the ray forces. This will lead to a science of psychology of a more sure and accurate nature, instead of the speculative science it now is. At present, modern psychology concerns itself with the more apparent aspects of incarnated man and with a discussion of certain speculative subjective possibilities. It might therefore be noted that the following rays and influences must be considered in the case of every individual man, for they make him what he is and determine his problem. 1. The ray of the solar system itself. 2. The ray of the planetary logos of our planet. 3. The ray of the human kingdom itself. 4. Our particular racial ray, the ray that determines the Aryan race. 5. The rays that govern any particular cycle. 6. The national ray, or that ray influence which is peculiarly influencing a particular nation. 7. The ray of the soul, or ego. 8. The ray of the personality. 9. The rays governing a. The mental body. b. The emotional or astral body. c. The physical body. There are other rays, but the above are the most powerful and have the greater conditioning power. Let us briefly consider them. 1. The ray of the solar system. It must be remembered that the dominating ray, the outstanding influence in our solar system, is the great cosmic second ray of love-wisdom, a dual ray, that is, a ray combining two great cosmic principles and energies. It is the ray which governs the personality of our solar logos, if such an expression may be used, and, because it is dual, it indicates both his personality and soul rays, which in him are now so balanced and blended that, from the angle of humanity, they constitute the major ray, the one ray. This major ray determines both his quality and his purpose. Every unit of life and every form in manifestation is governed by the second ray. Basically speaking, the energy of love, expressed with wisdom, is the line of least resistance for the manifested lives in our solar system. This ray qualifies the life of all the planets, and the attractive magnetic love of God pours through his created universe. It emerges in the consciousness and determines the objective of all evolving forms. Each human being, as a whole, therefore, lives in a universe and on a planet which is constantly the objective of God's love and desire, and which constantly, as a result of this love, is itself attracted and attractive. For this we do not make adequate allowance. Teachers, parents and educators would do well to recognize the potency of this ray force, and trust to the law to make all things good. 2. The ray of the planet Earth. Each of the 7 sacred planets, of which our Earth is not one, is an expression of one of the 7 ray influences. These 7 planets might be enumerated as follows, and the rays working through them are accurately given. The student, however, must remember 3 things. 1. That every planet is the incarnation of a life, of an entity or being. 2. That every planet, like a human being, is the expression of 2 ray forces, the personality and the egoic. 3. That 2 rays are therefore in esoteric conflict in each planet. I but indicate one of the rays, and I do not tell you whether it is the egoic or personality ray of the particular planetary logos. Too much accuracy and too detailed information is not at this time good for humanity, which is yet too selfish to be entrusted with it. The planets and rays. Sacred ray, non-sacred ray. 1. Vulcan. First ray. 1. Mars. Sixth ray. 2. Mercury. Fourth ray. 2. Earth. Third ray. 3. Venus. Fifth ray. 3. Pluto. First ray. 4. Jupiter. Second ray. 4. The Moon. Fourth ray. 5. Saturn. Third ray, veiling a hidden planet. 6. Neptune. Sixth ray. 5. The Sun. Second ray. 7. Uranus. Seventh ray, veiling a hidden planet. I deal here with the major ray cycles and not with the minor cycles. 2 rays, you will note, are apparently not expressing themselves through the non-sacred planets, the 7th and the 5th. There are only 5 non-sacred planets. But the reason which makes a planet sacred or not is one of the secrets of a certain major initiation, and I may not further elucidate here. Suffice it to say that the sacred planets are 7 in number, making a totality of 12 planetary manifestations. It will be obvious to the observant reader also that certain sacred planets and certain non-sacred planets have a close relation with each other through the rays which influence them. These are Ray I, Vulcan, Pluto. Ray 2, Jupiter, the Sun. Ray 3, Saturn, the Earth. Ray IV, Mercury, the Moon. Ray 6, Neptune, Mars. These relationships will provide a somewhat new field of investigation for astrologers. You will note therefore how peculiarly this earth on which we live is suited to the development of the incarnating sons of God. Man comes forth, as do all lives within the radius of influence of a solar system, upon the inspiration of love, expressed in wisdom. Love is not a sentiment. Love is the great principle of attraction, of desire, of magnetic pull, and, within our solar system, that principle demonstrates as the attraction and the interplay between the pairs of opposites. This interplay provides every needed grade or type of unfoldment for consciousness. Conscious response is first made to the most potent and to the densest kind of attraction in matter, that of the mineral kingdom. Dense as it is, and heavy as is that type of vibration, it is nevertheless an expression of embryonic love. Response again comes, with greater facility and more true awareness and sensitivity, in the next kingdom, and the consciousness of the vegetable world emerges. But this too is love. It responds more freely and reacts to a far wider range of contacts in the animal kingdom, and the basic instinctual desires emerge and can be recognized. They, in due time, become the motivation of the life, yet still it is only the love of God which is manifested. It is love between conscious life and conscious form. It is love between the pairs of opposites, leading to an eventual synthesis or marriage. It is relationship between the basic dualities. It is not sentiment but a fact in a great natural process. Always there is the emerging glory and radiance of a growing love, until we come to the human kingdom wherein love enters another plane. Then responsiveness and sensitivity and human sentimental reaction develop into a rudimentary mind. The consciousness of loving and being loved, of attracting and of being attracted, enters through the door of the intelligence and expands into the human state of awareness. Pleasure and pain become definite factors in unfoldment, and the long agony of humanity commences. Love then is seen in its naked selfishness, but also its potential glory can be sensed. Love or attractive desire then attracts to itself that which it feels it needs, but later, that is changed into what it thinks it should have, and this, in time, is transmuted into that which it knows as the divine non-material heritage of a Son of God. Ponder on these last few words, for in the true understanding of love as feeling, love as thinking, and love as aspiration will come a clarification of man's problem and his liberation from the thraldom of the lower loves into the liberty of love itself, and into the freedom of the one who possesses all things, and yet desires nothing for the separated self. The magnetic pull of that which is desired is modified on our planet by the personality ray of our particular planetary logos. This is the ray of active intelligence, and of selective adaptability. Just as every cell and atom in the human body is modified and conditioned by the egoic ray and the ray of each of the inner bodies, so every cell and atom in the body of the planetary logos is conditioned and modified by his outstanding ray influence, in this case, his personality ray. In this conditioning influence is found a clue to the distress and agony and pain in the world today. The planetary logos of our Earth is primarily conditioned by a cosmic ray, to be sure, but not by his egoic ray. Perhaps in this condition may be found the reason, or one of the reasons, why our Earth is not one of the 7 sacred planets. On this I need not enlarge, but it was necessary to call attention to this great determining factor, the third ray, which is the personality ray of our planetary logos. This ray brings in the factor of discrimination through mental activity, and this, in its turn, balances the so-called love nature, and it is in truth the cause of our evolutionary growth. The life in forms passes through discriminative and selective activity from one experience to another. In an ever-widening scale of contacts. It is this ray of intelligent activity which dominates man at this time. Human beings are largely centered in their personalities. They are egocentric, in the terminology of the psychologist, which recognizes the integrating principle of the ego, in many cases, but does not yet recognize the overshadowing ego or soul, except under such a vague term as the superconscious. We have therefore a humanity engrossed by a tremendous activity and demonstrating everywhere a vital discriminating and intellectual interest in all types of phenomena. This tendency to be active will go on increasing and intensifying until the Aryan race will merge into the coming major root race, for which we have as yet no name, though we recognize that in that race the intellect will serve the intuition. Human activity is now regarded as having reached an incredible speed and intensity of vibration, yet from the angle of the world knowers it is only just beginning to express itself, and is relatively feeble as yet. The growth of the tendency to vital speed can be noted if history is studied, and the pace at which man now lives, and the complexity and the many dynamic interests of his life, may be compared with those of the average man 200 years ago. The last 25 years of man's history have shown a tremendous speeding up as compared with conditions 50 years ago. The reason for this increase of intelligent activity and rapidity of response and contact is to be found in the subjective fact that humanity is with great speed integrating the 3 aspects of human nature into a unity, called personality. Men are steadily becoming personalities, and unifying into one expression their physical, emotional and mental aspects. Hence they are more able to respond to the ray of the integrated personality of the one in whom they live, and move, and have their being. Speaking therefore in terms of man's life problem, we might state that it is affected potently by the 2 major influences which beat upon the human kingdom, the cosmic ray of the solar system, the ray of love-wisdom, and the cosmic ray of the planet, which is the personality ray of the planetary logos, the ray of active intelligence or adaptability. Man might be defined as a unit of conscious life, swept into tangible expression through the discriminating love of God. Through his life experiences he is presented with innumerable choices which gradually shift from the realm of the tangible into that of the intangible. As he attracts, or is attracted by, the life of his environment, he becomes increasingly conscious of a series of shifting values, until he reaches that point in his development when the pull or the magnetic attraction of the subjective world and the intangible mental and spiritual realities are more potent than the factors which have hitherto enticed him on. His sense of values is no longer determined by 1. The satisfaction of his instinctual animal nature. 2. The desires of a more emotional and sentimental kind which his astral body demands. 3. The pull and pleasures of the mind nature, and of intellectual appetites. He becomes potently attracted by his soul, and this produces a tremendous revolution in his entire life, regarding the word revolution, in its true sense, as a complete turning around. This revolution is happening now, on such a universal scale in the lives of individuals in the world, that it is one of the main factors producing the present potency of experimental ideas in the world of modern times. The attractive power of the soul grows steadily, and the pull of the personality weakens as steadily. All this has been brought about by the process of experiment, leading to experience, by experience, leading to a wiser use of the powers of the personality, by a growing appreciation of a truer world of values and of reality, and by an effort on man's part to identify himself with the world of spiritual values and not with a world of material values. The world of meaning and of causes becomes gradually the world in which he finds happiness, and his selection of his major interests and the use to which he decides to put his time and powers are finally conditioned by the truer spiritual values. He then is on the path of illumination. I have sought to express the effects of these two major ray influences in terms of mysticism and of philosophy, but in very truth all that I have here said could be expressed scientifically and in terms of scientific formulas, if man were mentally equipped to appreciate them. But this is not yet possible. All these ray vibrations, no matter which they may be, can eventually be reduced to formulas and to symbols. Reaction to environment, sensitive response to the ray influences which govern and express themselves through the forms which compose man's environment, a growing power to discriminate between energies and forces, a slowly developing sense of values, which sense is the one which eventually dispels illusion and glamour and reveals reality, and a shift of the discriminating interest away from the worlds of tangible experience, of emotional life and of mental interest. All this expresses the effect of the interplay between the two rays of the solar system and of the planet. These, intermingling, pour through and affect mankind. One of the most difficult things with which the masters are today confronted is to prove to man that the old and recognized values and the tangible world of phenomena, emotional and physical, must be relegated to their right place in the background of man's consciousness, and that the intangible realities, and the world of ideas and causes must be, for him, in the immediate future, the main center of attention. When man grasps this and lives by this knowledge, then the glamour which now holds the world will disappear. If you ponder on this, you will recognize how the great crisis of 1914 to 1918 did much useful work in smashing the glamorous material security in which men were living, and in destroying much of their instinctual and sensuous selfishness. The group is beginning to be recognized as of major importance, and the welfare of the individual is important just in so far as the unit is an integral part of the group. This will not eventually destroy initiative and individuality. It is only in our initial experiments, and through our inexpertness in the use of the discriminating faculty, that we are, as yet, making such sad mistakes. This process of destroying the world illusion has been going on a large scale ever since, in every country, through the various experiments which are going forward, the glamour is breaking down and the truer values of group welfare, of group integration, and of group progress are emerging. The sense of insecurity which is such a distressing aspect of the present upheaval is due simply to this destruction of the old sense of values, to that dispelling of glamour which reveals at present an unfamiliar landscape, and to the fear and instability which man feels when he comes up against the world dweller on the threshold. This has to be broken up and destroyed, for it blocks the way to the new world of values. The great thought form which man's greed and materiality have built, down the ages, is being steadily demolished, and mankind is on the verge of a liberation which will take him on to the path of discipleship. I refer not here to the final liberation, but to that liberation which comes from a free choice, wisely used and applied to the good of the whole, and conditioned by love. Note that I say, wisely used. Wisdom, actuated and motivated by love, and intelligently applied to world problems, is much needed today and is not yet to be found, except among the few illumined souls in every nation, I say, without exception. Many more must love with wisdom and appreciate the group aspiration before we shall see the next reality to be known and to emerge out of the darkness which we are now in the process of dispelling. 3. The Ray of the Fourth Kingdom. We now touch briefly upon an obscure and difficult subject, and one that will appeal primarily to those types who work with the law of correspondences. Esotericists must remember that every kingdom in nature constitutes a totality of lives. Every atom in every form in nature is a life, and these lives form the cells of a being's body or vehicle of manifestation. There is a being embodied in every kingdom in nature. Just as the myriads of atomic lives in the human body constitute a man's body of expression and form his appearance, so it is with the greater life informing the fourth kingdom in nature. This appearance, as are all appearances, is qualified by some particular ray type, and is determined also by the vital principle or spirit aspect. Thus every form is composed of innumerable lives, which have in them a preponderance of some ray quality. This is an occult platitude. These qualified lives produce a phenomenal appearance, and thus constitute a unity, through the influence of the integrating principle, which is never absent. The ray which governs the sum total of the human kingdom is the fourth ray of harmony through conflict. It might be symbolically stated that the egoic ray of the life which informs the human family is this fourth ray, and that the personality ray is the fifth ray of knowledge through discrimination, the ray, as it is called, of concrete knowledge or science harmony through conflict, and the power to achieve knowledge through discriminating choice. These are the two rays or major influences which sweep through humanity as a whole, and drive it forward towards its divine destiny. They are the predisposing factors upon which a man may count and infallibly depend. They are the guarantee of attainment, but also of turmoil and temporary duality. Harmony, expressing itself in beauty and creative power, is gained through battle, through stress and strain. Knowledge, expressing itself eventually through wisdom, is attained only through the agony of successively presented choices. These, submitted to the discriminating intelligence during the process of the life experience, produce at last the sense of true values, the vision of the ideal, and the capacity to distinguish reality behind the intervening glamour. Students of esotericism will, of course, bear in mind that the fourth ray has a natural relation to the fourth kingdom in nature, which is in turn the lowest manifestation of the fourth creative hierarchy. This unification of the three major results of the activity of a great life might be enumerated thus. 1. The ray power or life which tends ever towards harmony and an eventual beauty, the fourth ray. 2. The creative hierarchy of human monads, who, little as they may realize it, have already attained wisdom and are veritably at this time the divine sons of God. 3. The fourth kingdom in nature which is the result of the evolutionary activity of the above, who are in their turn impelled to this activity by the fourth ray. This is essentially the true apostolic succession, for it provides a triple line of directed energy. This produces the human manifestation on the fourth globe of our earth chain, and in this fourth round is responsible for the tremendous crisis with which our present humanity is confronted. The conflict aspect of the process is at its height, nay, has passed its height, from the angle of physical plane expression. This situation and this triple influence, producing the manifestation of the sons of God, is summed up for us in the terse words of the old commentary, when we remember that they express the long agony of humanity's test, and the opening to man of the door into the fifth kingdom of spiritual being. They include therefore, in their meaning, his goal and objective and the process whereby he attains. The Holy Four descend from out the heavenly places and venture forth towards the sphere of earth. From the fourth great plane they thus control the battle. The Lord of Harmony, who sits on high, pours all his life and force throughout the field of conflict. He sees the end from the beginning nor stays his hand though deep and full the pain and agony. Peace must be the goal. Beauty must be achieved. He cannot then arrest the life and stop its flow. The middle four, rested now from the earlier campaign, gird on their armor and hide themselves behind the outer form. They leave the fourth great sphere of harmony and pass on to the plane of mind. There they fortify the temple of the Lord, illumine it with light and glory, and then they turn their eyes towards the earth. The lower four take form between the lives that are not human and the three groups of lives which dwell beneath the threshold. They seek to link and blend, to bridge and fuse. Mankind now lives. The higher and the middle four meet in the lower four upon the fourth great globe. The battle now proceeds. When the three groups of manifested fours can see each other in the light, and later blend their forces, the goal will be achieved. In the fourth globe of action and in the major cycle of the fourth expression will this fusion be completed. The lower four, merged in the middle four, will leave the triple world of conflict, and find their dwelling place, whilst in the form, within the fourth sphere whence came forth the higher governing four. Thus will the government be established, the glory seen, the rule of the hierarchy demonstrated. In the fourth race, the Atlantean, AAB. The conflict was begun, and consciousness was born. In the fifth race, the Aryan, AAB. The crisis of the battle will be seen, and then the lower four and the middle four will begin to unite their forces. In the sixth race, the dust of battle dies away. The lower four, the middle four and the higher four will chant in unison the glory of their Lord, the beauty of the love of God, the wonder of the brotherhood of man. This is their paean. Esoterically speaking, and not speaking symbolically, for there is a distinction between these two forms which students would do well to note. When the lines of forces are adjusted and there is free interplay of energies and a straight-aligned channel between the various aspects of divinity, then there is achievement and beauty. This is the theme of the above symbolical and ancient formulation of truth, which is in the nature of a symbolical prophecy. The same idea has been expressed in a still more ancient and terse statement which has to be understood and reduced to a mantric formula when the fourth initiation is taken. When the forces of the four, 3 times repeated, become the four, then the life of reveals itself in beauty. It is interesting to note that the numerical value of the word four is the same in detail as that of the word force if you eliminate the number 5. For humanity, it is the fifth energy which leads to the battlefield, the energy of the discriminating mind, and when that has been in due time used, controlled and transmuted, only the 4 remains and force has gone. Note the detail of the numbering. It is apparent that force in the first group ends in separativeness, for 5 is the number of the mind and of man. Number 9, the number of initiation, is hidden midway in force, but the climaxing figures indicate activity and separation. In the second group of figures, activity precedes the 9 of initiation, and that 9 is the culmination. But 5 is left out. Man is no longer really human or separative. He is the perfected 4 of the lower 3 and the soul. Putting the truth quite simply, let it be borne in mind that mankind, the fourth kingdom, which is an expression of the fourth creative hierarchy of human monads, is swept by the instinct or impulse towards harmony, and is thus primarily under the influence of the fourth ray. This harmony is achieved through the use of the energy of the fifth ray of knowledge. Then through gained and applied knowledge, the result is beauty and the power to create. Then the ray of the fifth Lord will be withdrawn from the major cycle governing humanity, and wisdom and intuitional Buddhic response will characterize humanity. There is a close interplay in this major cycle, as far as mankind is concerned, between the 2 ray lords of harmony and of knowledge. It is again in this numerical relation of 4 and 5 that the number 9 emerges, which is the number of initiation. An adept of the fifth initiation is one who has achieved complete harmony through right knowledge. This takes place at the fourth initiation and is demonstrated or proven at the fifth. A close study of the tabulations of the rays affecting humanity will have made it clear that they are so many and so diverse that the complexity of the subject is very great. There are numerous influences which tend to make man what he is, and of many of them little is as yet known. In the early stages of his development, it is well nigh impossible for anyone, except an initiate, to deal with the various phases or even to recognize the indications of humanity's reactions to these rays. But as mankind evolves, and as the form aspect becomes increasingly a better and finer response apparatus and a more plastic sensitive reflector of the inner man, definition and analysis become easier. Types emerge with greater clarity in their delineations, and the ray qualities begin to dominate. The impress of the controlling rays can be more clearly noted and the point in evolution can be more accurately realized. We have now to consider the rays which dominate the races of mankind. The average reader would be wise to take the position that for him, at least, the information hitherto given, and that which concerns the racial, national and cyclic rays, provide an interesting hypothesis which can be intelligently accepted until disproven. This knowledge must necessarily remain hypothetical for several life periods, where the average student is concerned. When, however, we come to the consideration of the final 3 points of this section of our treatise, it may be possible to check the information, to correlate the ray types, and to discover, by a study of the potencies involved, their emerging characteristics and ray forces. By the proving therefore of the human detail, we lay the ground for the acceptance of the cosmic. Solar and planetary knowledge. What is proven true on the small scale opens the door for the understanding of that which exists on a larger scale. Man, know thyself, is a potent key to the knowledge of deity and to the workings of divinity. 4. The racial rays. The reader needs to remember that 3 rays are occultly quiescent and 4 rays are in varying degrees of activity. Let us recapitulate for a moment so that this thought may be clearly anchored in our minds. Rays 1, 4 and 6 are at this time out of manifestation, though ray 6 began to decline in influence only 300 years ago, and its potency, though greatly weakened, can still be felt. Rays 2, 3, 5 and 7 are still potent. The following statement may give some idea of the relative values of these ray influences. Ray 3 has been the longest in incarnation, but in 1875 it occultly completed its outgoing, and began to curve upon itself, and thus return. It is therefore just beginning to wane. When this event occurs in connection with any type of energy, the effect produced is always of a crystallizing nature and is apt to produce set forms which warrant prompt destruction. This causes mental conditions of a set and static nature. The inference is therefore clear that in the later stages of this ray's activity we have the demonstration of those dogmatic, sectarian and theological attitudes, for instance, which mark the decline and consequent uselessness of the various schools of thought which have in their time embodied man's ideas and sufficed for his helping during the period of their growth. Ray 2 has a rapidly recurring cycle. This is due to its excessive potency. Being the major ray of our solar system, of which all the other rays are but aspects, it might be said that this ray is really never out of incarnation. There are nevertheless constant cycles of waxing and waning potency, produced by the interplay of the rays which produce what is called in the ancient archives, the intrusion of one or another of the 7 brothers who block the door from whence the force emerges, and the disappearance of that radiant brother who passes on his way and leaves behind an open door through which another brother can pass upon his mission preordained. The symbolism is clear. The cycles of the second ray are dynamic and recur in a regular rhythm at this time and during the 25,000 years of a zodiacal cycle in sequences of 500 years. Therefore in 1825 the potency of this ray began to decline as the peak of its 250 years emergence was reached. It was the gradual withdrawal of this ray which led to that growth of separativeness in the world which produced the European wars and the Great World War. This ray will continue declining for another 140 years. This does not necessarily mean the growth of physical violence and the prevalence of war. Humanity is now so much more responsive to ray influences that the watching hierarchy, through egoic stimulation and the sensitivity of certain nations to the inner guidance, can offset the more obvious major effects. This will give an interesting side light upon the vast importance of these cyclic happenings. Ray 5 is the latest of the rays to come into activity and is only in process of coming forth to power. It is steadily increasing in potency, and the result of its influence will be to guide humanity into increasing knowledge. Its energy beats upon the minds of men at this time and produces that stimulation which lies behind all the scientific approach to truth in all departments of human thought. Being also the ray which governs the personality aspect of the 4th kingdom in nature, and being one of the rays determining or conditioning our Aryan race, its present potency is excessive. This is a point to be remembered with care, for it accounts for much that we can see happening in the world of thought. Ray 7 is also in manifestation, and has been since the year 1675. This we shall consider in more detail when we take up our 5th point, the rays in cyclic manifestation. The interplay, therefore, and the beauty of the blended energies are at this time great, for so many rays are either manifesting simultaneously or are just passing out and are therefore not entirely negligible, or are hovering near at hand ready to pass into the stage of revelation and so continue their cyclic work. Only one ray is today really out of manifestation altogether and functioning entirely behind the scenes, and that is the first ray. Where humanity is concerned, the first ray makes its presence felt, and its potency dominates, when the stage of accepted discipleship is reached. It increases in power as progress on the path is gained. Thus there is beginning to be gathered on the subjective side of life a steadily growing group of those who can function under the influence of this first ray. When enough of the sons of men can thus function, their united responsiveness will constitute a channel through which this first ray can come into manifestation. This is one of the main activities and objectives of the hierarchy, and in the right understanding of the result of the responsiveness of humanity to the ray influences shall we arrive at the recognition of a law in nature hitherto undiscovered. This particular law is connected with the department of the governor of the world, the Manu. It might be of interest here to note that Ray 6 governs the path of probation and nourishes the fires of idealism in the aspirant. Ray 2 governs the path of discipleship and transmutes knowledge into wisdom, feeding likewise the Christ life in each disciple. Ray 1 governs the path of initiation, producing detachment from form, the destruction of all that hinders, and fostering that dynamic will in the initiate which will enable him to take the needed steps towards the initiator. It should here be noted that the rays divide themselves into two groups, i.e. 1. The rays of aspect, rays 1, 2, 3, the major rays. 2. The rays of attribute, rays 4, 5, 6, 7, the minor rays. The distinction between these two groups has been well summed up in some sentences from the old commentary. The 7 brothers are all the children of the same father, but the elder 3 partake of the father's nature. The younger 4 resemble the mother. The 3 elder sons go forth into the universe of stars, and there they represent the father. The younger 4 go forth into the universe of stars and show the nature of the one the father loved. The rays of aspect have longer cycles than the rays of attribute, and their measure is occultly slow, cumulative in effect, and, as the ages pass away, their momentum steadily increases. The rays of attribute have briefer cycles, and produce a steady heartbeat and a regular rhythm in the solar system. The 3 rays of aspect might be regarded as embodying the will and purpose of the incarnating logos. The rays of attribute can equally be regarded as embodying the quality and character of the incarnating logos. Symbolically speaking, the 3 major rays are the expression, during manifestation, of the egoic aspect of the solar logos, whilst the 4 rays of attribute embody his personality aspect. Nevertheless, it must be remembered that the 7 together are the manifestation in form of what God is, and the measure of the divine intention. Students should bear these points in mind as they study the rays and their cyclic influence on mankind. If they will remember that when a major ray is in manifestation, then the divine intent, the universal purpose and plan will be seen emerging with greater clarity, they will expect and look for great happenings in the racial development. If a minor ray is demonstrating, we shall have the growth of psychic sensitivity, and the emergence of a form life which will express the divine nature more potently than the divine plan. This truth can be applied also to the development of the individual, and will govern and determine his evolutionary growth either from the angle of purpose or from the angle of quality. Lives that are given to the unfolding of purpose will be of a different timbre and nature than those which are given to the development of character and quality. This is a psychological point of real moment. The statement made above is one of the most significant and important yet communicated in this treatise, and well merits careful consideration. The true import is of course most difficult to grasp, but the general meaning can be recognized and appreciated by the searching student. The rays of aspect produce primarily the unfolding of the plan. The rays of attribute produce the unfolding of the qualities of deity. This is true of the solar logos and of a human being, of the planetary deity and of humanity as a whole. The application of this truth can be clearly seen in connection with the Aryan race and the 2 rays which govern and control its destiny. The 3rd ray of intelligent activity or adaptability governs the entire career of the race, and through this dominance we can see working out the plan of God, which is the definite fusion of spirit and matter, through the evolution of the soul of man. The result of this fusion may be briefly summed up in the following 3 statements. 1. A widespread interest in, leading finally to a recognition of, the soul as a result of this fusion and blending. 2. The appreciation of the divinity of substance, and the recognition of the fact that matter is the outer garment of God. This will characterize the intellectual achievement of the Aryan race. 3. the plan of God that humanity should control matter on the physical plane reaches a high point of perfection in the Aryan race. Of this, man's control of the electrical forces of the physical plane is an outstanding instance. These three important developments indicate the activity of the third ray during the period of time wherein the Aryan race emerges from the general racial background, develops itself as the generations pass away, and then fades out again as do all the races. By this process the souls which have profited by the experience during racial manifestation pass on into another and higher race, the sixth root race in this case. These are the major results. There are many minor ones which tend to perfect the divine purpose for the race. That purpose aims only at a relative perfection and not at the ultimate consummation. The racial perfection which will be reached as a result of the activity of the third and fifth rays will be seen as only partial from the angle of vision of the seventh root race, for instance, but it will be far ahead of that achieved during the Atlantean or fourth root race, which was under the dominant influence of the second and sixth rays. The flower of any race, and those who guarantee its achievement, are to be seen in the masters, initiates and disciples who, during any race, reach the goal which their souls have set. The reader must remember that the goal of adeptship is a steadily shifting one, and that the adepts of the Aryan race will be higher in development, and of a more intellectual order, than those who reached that stage during the Atlantean race. Therefore the requirements for treading the path of discipleship in the present race are steadily increasing in difficulty as the centuries slip away. At the same time, the assets brought by the aspirant to the task of achieving discipleship likewise steadily evolve, and the equipment is as steadily arriving at a greater adequacy, thus measuring up to the opportunity offered. Such books, therefore, as The Outer Court and The Path of Discipleship by Annie Besant state the requirements for the path of probation, and not for the path of discipleship. A treatise on white magic gives the needed data for those who tread, at this time, the path of discipleship. In these three books are to be found the requirements for the two stages of the path of conscious unfoldment. Curiously enough, in Lemurian days the first ray was active. This was because of a special dispensation or effort on the part of the planetary hierarchy. With the aid of the seventh ray the needed work went forward. At the time of the individualization of humanity, a third ray, the fifth, was called into operation, and thus with the united effort of the first, the seventh and the fifth rays, the great fusion between the higher and the lower aspects of mankind was made. It is interesting to note that the secondary ray influence in the Aryan race at this time is the fifth, thus linking up the Aryan and the Lemurian civilizations. Both were and are intensely material civilizations, but the Lemurian was material because the whole attention of the hierarchy was turned to the development of physical man, whilst today the attention is not turned to the physical unfoldment of man, but to an effort to enable man to control the physical forces of the planet. One rather striking instance of the similarity of the ray forces should be here noted. In Lemurian times, the yoga of the age which produced the required at one ing or unification, preceding the taking of the initiation of the time, was Hatha Yoga, the yoga of the physical body. This gave to the initiate the needed physical control, a control which has today been so perfected in the race that it is now automatic and has slipped below the threshold of consciousness. In the great cyclic recapitulations which go on ceaselessly we see today in our Aryan race a tremendous emphasis being given to physical perfection, to sport, to athletics, to dancing and to physical culture. It is the cyclic effect of the same ray forces, playing upon humanity again. The initiatory goal is today a mental at one ing. Nevertheless, the physical reaction to the ray forces produces a higher form of Hatha Yoga or physical coordination. These points will be further elucidated. The secondary influence which is leading the Aryan race forward is that of the fifth ray of concrete knowledge or science. This ray, as we have seen, was one of the rays which brought about individualization millions of years ago, and so launched mankind upon the path of return. Again it comes into power, and though it has had many cycles of activity since Lemurian days, none of them have been of such unobstructed dominance as the present. Hence the tremendous potency of individuals at this time, hence the difficulty, but also the opportunity. This is a ray of quality, and its effect is to stimulate the acquisition of knowledge and the growth of the human intellect, which is an instrument of exceeding sensitivity, producing increased awareness of God. It might be said that in Lemurian times the effect of this ray was to stimulate the instinctual nature. This gave awareness of the form nature of deity. During Atlantean days, through the influence of the second ray, the instinct began to merge into the intellect, and that aspect of man's nature was developed which is called, in theosophical books, kama manas. This phrase simply means a blend of desire-feeling lower mind, a curious synthesis which characterizes average man today, and leads to his complicated problem. This development gave man another type of awareness. He became conscious of the sentient universe, he became sensitive to the love of God, and registered an innate reaction to the heart of God. Today, under the fifth ray influence, the intellect is rapidly awakening, instinct is falling below the threshold of consciousness. Kama manas is no longer the outstanding characteristic of the disciples of the world. The intellect, concrete and abstract, lower and higher, is steadily unfolding, and as it unfolds, the will, purpose and plan of the deity begin to take shape in men's minds. The secondary effects of this development are the power to organize, and to work individually with definite purpose. This is demonstrated today by individuals in all departments of human activity. They evince capacity to sense the plan of God and to cooperate. They see the broad general outlines of the divine purpose, and comprehend as never before the great evolutionary plan. Men are building now towards the future because they have glimpsed the past and touched the vision. Later, we shall have a transition period again, analogous to that period wherein kama manas was developed, and we shall then have the entire race expressing a developed synthesis of intellect intuition, preparatory to that advanced stage which will come at the close of the next root race, the sixth. This takes us to a period 10 million years hence, when the intellect will have in its turn slipped below the threshold of consciousness, as did the instinct. It will then work automatically as does man's instinctual nature, and the race will be intuitive. This will really mean that the fifth kingdom in nature will be manifesting on earth, and that the kingdom of God, as the Christian calls it, will have arrived. This will constitute an event of an importance equal to that of the advent of the fourth kingdom, when men made their appearance on earth. This next great race will be governed by the second and fourth rays, thus demonstrating a relation between the fourth root race, the Atlantean, and the sixth root race. In terms of consciousness, this can be expressed as a relation between an astral emotional development and an intuitional Buddhic development. The final race will be governed by the first, the seventh and the second rays. I think I have given you as much on this abstruse subject as can be grasped. The tabulation of the rays governing the races might be stated, therefore, as follows. Lemurian race. Rays 1, 7, 5. Atlantean race. Rays 2, 6. Aryan race. Rays 3, 5. Sixth race. Rays 2, 4. Seventh race. Rays 1, 7, 2. 5. The rays in cyclic manifestation. We come now to a consideration of the forces which are prevailing at the present time and hence have a supreme interest in connection with what I now have to say. It might first be stated that the main problem of today is brought about by the fact that two rays of great potency are functioning simultaneously. As yet their effects are so equally balanced that a situation is brought about which is described in the ancient archives in the following terms: a time of rending, when the mountains, which have sheltered, fall from their high places, and the voices of men are lost in the crash and thunder of the fall. Such periods come only at rare and long intervals, and each time they come a peculiarly significant period of divine activity is ushered in. Old things pass entirely away, yet the ancient landmarks are restored. The seventh ray of ceremonial order or ritual is coming into manifestation. The sixth ray of idealism or of abstract visioning is slowly passing out. The seventh ray will bring into expression that which was visioned and that which constituted the ideals of the preceding cycle of sixth ray activity. One ray prepares the way for another ray, and the reason for the manifestation of one ray or another is dependent upon the plan and divine purpose. It is not often that two rays follow each other in a regular numerical sequence, such as is now happening. When this does happen, there eventuates a rapid following of effect upon cause, and this today can provide the basis for an assured hope. A. The outgoing sixth ray. The sixth ray influence served to attract men's minds towards an ideal, such as that of individual sacrifice or service, and the mystical vision was the high water mark of the period. The numerous guiding mystics of the Occident and the Orient have appeared. The seventh ray influence will in time produce the magician, but in this age the magician will be predominantly in the class of white magic, not as in Atlantean days, when the predominance was on the side of selfish or black magic. The white magician works with the forces of nature and swings them back into control of advanced humanity. This can already be seen working out through the activity of the scientists which the latter end of the last century and this 20th century have produced. That much of their magical work has been turned into selfish channels by the tendency of this materialistic age, and that many of their wise and true discoveries in the realm of energy are today adapted to ends which serve man's hatred or love of self, is equally true. But this in no way militates against the wonder of their achievements. When the motive is transmuted from pure scientific interest to love of the divine revelation, and when service to the race is the determining force, then we shall see the true white magic. Hence therefore the need to turn the mystic into the occultist, and to train the modern aspirant in right motive, mind control and brotherly love, all of which must and will express themselves through harmlessness. The most potent force in the world today is harmlessness. I speak not of non-resistance, but of that positive attitude of mind which thinks no evil. He who thinks no evil and harms not is a citizen of God's world. The following relations between the sixth and seventh rays should be held clearly in mind, and students should grasp the relation of the immediate past to the immediate future, and see in this relation the working out of God's plan and the coming salvation of the race. A. The sixth ray fostered the vision. The seventh ray will materialize that which was visioned. B. The sixth ray produced the mystic as its culminating type of aspirant. The seventh ray will develop the magician who works in the field of white magic. C. The sixth ray, as part of the evolutionary plan, led to separations, to nationalism, and to sectarianism, due to the selective nature of the mind and its tendency to divide and separate. The seventh ray will lead to fusion and synthesis, for its energy is of the type which blends spirit and matter. D. The sixth ray activity led to the formation of bands of disciples, working in groups but not in close relation, and subject to internal dissension, based on personality reactions. The seventh ray will train and send forth groups of initiates, working in close unison with the plan and with each other. E. The sixth ray brought the sense of duality to a humanity which regarded itself as a physical unity. Of this attitude the academic materialistic psychologists are the exponents. The seventh ray will inaugurate the sense of a higher unity. First, that of the integrated personality for the masses, and secondly, that of the fusion of soul and body for the world aspirants. F. The sixth ray differentiates that aspect of the universal electrical energy which we know as modern electricity, produced to serve man's material needs. The seventh ray period will familiarize man with that type of electrical phenomena which produce the coordination of all forms. G. The sixth ray influence produced the emergence in men's minds of the following knowledges. 1. Knowledge of physical plane light and electricity. 2. Among the esotericists and spiritualists of the world, knowledge of the existence of the astral light. 3. An interest in illumination, both physical and mental. 4. Astrophysics and the newer astronomical discoveries. The seventh ray will change the theories of the advanced thinkers of the race into the facts of the future educational systems. Education and the growth of the understanding of illumination in all fields will eventually be regarded as synonymous ideals. H. The sixth ray taught the meaning of sacrifice, and of this teaching the crucifixion was the outstanding emblem, to the initiates. Philanthropy was the expression of the same teaching, to advanced humanity. The nebulous ideal of simply being kind is the same motivation, applied to the unthinking masses. The seventh ray will bring to the consciousness of the coming initiates the concept of group service and sacrifice. This will inaugurate the age of the divine service. The vision of the giving of the individual in sacrifice and service, within the group and to the group ideal, will be the goal of the masses of advanced thinkers in the New Age, whilst for the rest of humanity, brotherhood will be the keynote of their endeavor. These words have a wider connotation and significance than the thinkers of today can know and understand. The sixth ray promoted the growth of the spirit of individualism. Groups exist, but they are groups of individuals gathered around an individual. The seventh ray will foster the group spirit, and the rhythm of the group, the objectives of the group, and the ritual working of the group will be the basic phenomena. The sixth ray influence conveyed to men the ability to recognize the historical Christ, and to evolve the structure of the Christian faith, colored by a vision of a great Son of Love, but qualified by an excessive militancy and separativeness, based on a narrow idealism. The seventh ray will convey to man the power to recognize the cosmic Christ, and to produce that future scientific religion of light which will enable man to fulfill the command of the historical Christ to permit his light to shine forth. The sixth ray produced the great idealistic religions with their vision and their necessary narrowness, a narrowness that is needed to safeguard infant souls. The seventh ray will release the developed souls from the nursery stage and inaugurate that scientific understanding of the divine purpose which will foster the coming religious synthesis. The effect of the sixth ray influence has been to foster the separative instincts, dogmatic religion, scientific factual accuracy, schools of thought with their doctrinal barriers and exclusiveness, and the cult of patriotism. The seventh ray will prepare the way for the recognition of the wider issues which will materialize as the New World religion which will emphasize unity but bar out uniformity. It will prepare for that scientific technique which will demonstrate the universal light that every form veils and hides, and for that internationalism which will express itself as practical brotherhood and as peace and goodwill between the peoples. I could continue emphasizing these relations, but I have enumerated enough to show the beauty of the preparation made by the sixth great Lord of Idealism for the work of the seventh Lord of Ceremonial. The incoming seventh ray. It might be wise here to elucidate somewhat the idea underlying ceremonial and ritual. There is so much revolt at this time against ceremonial, and so many good and well-meaning people regard themselves as having outgrown and transcended ritual. They pride themselves on having attained that so-called liberation, forgetting that it is only the sense of individuality that permit this attitude, and that no group work is ever possible without some form of ritual. The refusal therefore to participate in uniformity of action is no sign of a liberated soul. The Great White Brotherhood has its rituals, but they are rituals which have for their objective the inauguration and the assistance of various aspects of the plan, and of the varying cyclic activities of that plan. Where these rituals exist, but where the meaning, inherently present, remains hidden and unrealized, there must as a consequence be demonstrated a spirit of deadness, of uselessness, and of weariness of interest over forms and ceremonies. But where it is demonstrated that ritual and organized ceremonies are but the evidence of a custody of forces and energies, then the idea is constructive in its working out, cooperation with the plan becomes possible, and the aim of all the divine service begins to demonstrate. All service is governed by ritual. The coming in of the seventh ray will lead to this desired consummation, and the mystics who are training themselves in the technique of occult motive and in the methods of the trained magician will increasingly find themselves cooperating intelligently with the plan, and participating in those basic rituals which are distinguished by their power to harness the forces of the planet to the service of the race. Send forth those energies which will produce in some one or other of the kingdoms of nature effects of a desirable and beneficent aspect. Call in and redistribute the energies which are present in all the forms in the various subhuman kingdoms. Heal through a scientific method of bringing together soul and body. Produce illumination through right understanding of the energy of light. Evolve that coming ritual which will eventually reveal the true significance of water, which will revolutionize its uses and open to man the free passage to the astral plane. This plane is that of the emotional desire nature, and its symbol is water. The coming Aquarian age will reveal to man, and hence also facilitate the work of the seventh ray, that plane is his natural home at this state of development. The masses today are entirely, but unconsciously, polarized on that plane. They must become consciously aware of their activity. Man is on the verge of becoming normally awake on the astral plane, and it will be through scientific rituals that this new development will be brought about. The sixth ray influence produced the appearance of the modern science of psychology, and that science has been its consummating glory. The seventh ray influence will carry forward that infant science to maturity. Belief in the soul has become widespread during the sixth ray period. Knowledge of the soul will be the result of the incoming ray activity, plus the aid contributed by the energies released during the incoming Aquarian age. The new and esoteric psychology will be steadily developed. It will be apparent therefore that a treatise on white magic has a definitely seventh ray import, and this treatise on the seven rays has also been sent forth in an effort to clarify the incoming spiritual influences. One of the first lessons that humanity will learn under the potent influence of the seventh ray is that the soul controls its instrument, the personality, through ritual, or through the imposition of a regular rhythm, for rhythm is what really designates a ritual. When aspirants to discipleship impose a rhythm on their lives, they call it a discipline, and they feel happy about it. What groups do who are gathered together for the performance of any ritual or ceremony whatsoever, church ritual, the Masonic work, the drill of the Army or Navy, business organizations, the proper functioning of a home, of a hospital, or of an entertainment, etc., is of an analogous nature, for it imposes on the participants a simultaneous performance, an identical undertaking, or a ritual. No one on this earth can evade ritual or ceremonial, for the rising and the setting of the sun imposes a ritual, the cyclic passing of the years, the potent movements of the great centers of population, the coming and the going of trains, of ocean liners and of mails, and the regular broadcasting of the radio organizations, all of these impose a rhythm upon humanity, whether this is recognized or not. Of these rhythms, the present great experiments in national standardization and regimentation are also an expression, as they demonstrate through the masses in any nation. There is no evading the process of ceremonial living. It is unconsciously recognized, blindly followed, and constitutes the great discipline of the rhythmic breathing of life itself. The deity works with ritual and is subjected to the ceremonials of the universe. The seven rays come into activity and pass out again under the rhythmic and ritualistic impulse of the divine life. Thus is the temple of the Lord built by the ceremonial of the builders. Every kingdom in nature is subjected to ritualistic experience and to the ceremonials of cyclic expression. These only the initiate can comprehend. Every ant hill and every beehive is equally impelled by instinctive rituals and by rhythmic impulses. The new science of psychology could well be described as the science of the rituals and rhythms of the body, of the emotional nature and of the mental processes, or of those ceremonials, inherent, innate, or imposed by the self, by circumstances and by environment, which affect the mechanism through which the soul functions. It is interesting to note how the sixth ray, which produced in human beings the sense of separativeness and of pronounced individualism, has prepared the way for the organizing power of the seventh ray. It is almost as if, to speak symbolically, the executives who were to undertake the reorganizing of the world in preparation for the new age were trained and prepared for their task by the influence now going out. Today a process of housecleaning is going forward in practically every great nation, preparatory to the coming revelation, and the executives and dictators who are sponsoring this realignment and readjustment are the experts whom the genius of each nation has brought forth to deal with the unique problems with which it is beset. They are predominantly seventh-ray executives, whose task it is to reorganize the world as a whole upon the newer lines. They are in the nature of material efficiency experts who have been sent in to deal with internal affairs and to institute that activity which will eliminate those factors which prevent the nation concerned from functioning as a whole, as a unit, integrated and coherent. It is from the lack of internal harmony and synthesis that those internal difficulties and disorders emerge which, if of long continuance, prevent a nation having aught to contribute to the world of nations and lead to that nations being so intensely disordered that the wrong people come into power and the wrong aspects of truth become emphasized. A disordered inharmonious national unit is a menace to the comity of nations, and therefore the separative housecleanings and rearrangements must go forward before the federation of nations can be an accomplished fact. The new era is however upon its way, and nothing can prevent that which the stars decree and which the hierarchy of guiding minds consequently foresee. The new executives who will succeed the present dictators and powers will take over the control towards the year 1955, and they will be seventh-ray aspirants and disciples in the majority of cases. Their capacity towards integration and towards fusion along right lines will then rapidly bring about the needed international understanding. The question emerges in your mind as to whether such a prophecy will indeed be fulfilled, and if unfulfilled, will not that fact militate against much that I have said and prove me unreliable? Let me answer this question by pointing out that those of us who foresee that which may and ought to be are nevertheless well aware that though the fulfillment of the prophecy is inevitable, yet the time factor may not work out as indicated. This will be because the distressed human mechanisms of those to whom the work is given will fail to react either correctly or at the right time. These incoming seventh-ray aspirants and disciples may make mistakes and may perform their undertakings in such a manner that delay may eventuate. They are permitted to have the general outline of their task committed to them by their own souls, working under the inspiration of those great and liberated souls we call the masters of the wisdom, but there is no coercion under the plan and no forced and dictated service. Much of the success in the coming momentous years is dependent upon the work done by all who may be affiliated, even slightly, with the new group of world servers. If public opinion is educated in the new ideals, the momentum of that growing tide will greatly facilitate the work of these seventh-ray executives, and in some cases will constitute for them the line of least resistance. Failure, therefore, will rest upon the shoulders of the world aspirants and disciples, and will not indicate inaccurate prophecy or misinterpreted astrological conditions. In any case, the prophesied end is inevitable, but the time of that end rests in the hands of awakened humanity. The margin of difference will also be only between 100 and 300 years. The impulse towards synthesis is now too strong to be long delayed. Under this seventh-ray influence, the Masonic fraternity will come into a new and pronounced spiritual activity and begin to approximate its true function and to fulfill its long-seen destiny. One point it might be of interest here to note. During the period of the activity of the sixth ray, the fraternity fell into a crystallized and sectarian attitude, along with the many other group circles. It fell also into the snare of materialism, and the outer form has for centuries been of more importance in the eyes of Masons than the inner spiritual meaning. The symbols and the system of allegories have been emphasized, whilst that which they were intended to convey and to reveal to the initiated has been quite forgotten. Also, the trend of the attention of a lodge of Masons, and the main emphasis, has been potently placed on the function and place of the WM, and not upon the inner significance of the work upon the floor of the temple. The lodge has not been regarded as an integrated functioning entity. This must and will be changed, and the potency and the effectiveness of the lodge work and ceremonial will be demonstrated. It will be seen that in the regularity of the rituals and the sanctified formality of the ordained ceremonials lies the true meaning of the work and the use of the word. The coming era of group work and power and of organized synthetic ritualistic activity will profoundly affect Masonry, as the importance of a central dominating figure passes out with the sixth ray influence and the true spiritual work and function of the lodge itself is understood. The prime cosmic function of the seventh ray is to perform the magical work of blending spirit and matter in order to produce the manifested form through which the life will reveal the glory of God. Students would be well advised to pause here and reread the section of this treatise in which I dealt with the seventh-ray Lord, with his names, and with his purpose. When this has been done, it will be apparent that one of the results of the intensified new influence will be the recognition, by science, of certain effects and characteristics of the work being accomplished. This can already be seen in the work done by scientists in connection with the mineral world. We have seen in an earlier part of this book the mineral kingdom is governed by the seventh ray, and to the potency of this incoming ray can be attributed the discovery of the radioactivity of matter. The seventh ray expresses itself in the mineral kingdom through the production of radiation, and we shall find that increasingly these radiations, many of which still remain to be discovered, will be noted, their effects understood and their potencies grasped. One point remains as yet unrealized by science, and that is that these radiations are cyclic in their appearance. Under the influence of the seventh ray it has been possible for man to discover and work with radium. Radium has always been present, but not always active in such a manner that we were able to detect it. It is under the influence of the incoming seventh ray that its appearance has been made possible, and it is through this same influence that we shall discover new cosmic rays. They too are always present in our universe, but they use the substance of the incoming ray energy as the path along which they can travel to our planet and thus be revealed. It is many thousands of years since what are now studied as the cosmic rays, discovered by Millikan, played definitely upon our planet, and at that time the fifth ray was not active as it now is. Therefore scientific knowledge of their activity was not possible. Other cosmic rays will play upon our Earth as this seventh ray activity becomes increasingly active, and the result of their influence will be to facilitate the emergence of the new racial types, and above all else, to destroy the veil or web which separates the world of the seen and tangible from the world of the unseen and the intangible, the astral world. Just as there is a veil called the etheric web, dividing off the various force centers in the human body, and protecting the head centers from the astral world, so there is a separating web between the world of physical life and the astral world. This will be destroyed, slowly and certainly, by the play of the cosmic rays upon our planet. The etheric web which is found between the centers in the spine, and which is found at the top of the head, protecting the head center, is destroyed in man's mechanism by the activity of certain forces found in that mysterious fire which we call the Kundalini fire. The cosmic rays of which the modern scientist is aware constitute aspects of the planetary Kundalini, and their effect will be the same in the body of the planetary logos, the Earth, as it is in the human body. The etheric web between the physical and astral planes is in process of destruction, and it is of this event which the sensitives of the world and the spiritualists prophesy as an imminent happening. Page 371. Much of profound interest is on its way as a result of this seventh ray activity. For one thing, though the animal kingdom reacts but little to this type of influence, yet there are going to be very definite results within the soul of the animal form. The door of individualization or of entrance into the human kingdom has been closed since Atlantean times, but under the new influence it will be partially opened. It will be set ajar, so that a few animals will respond to soul stimulation and discover that their rightful place is on the human side of the dividing door. Part of the reorganization which will go on as a result of the seventh ray activity will concern the relation of humanity to the animal kingdom and the establishing of better and of closer relations. This will lead men to take advantage of another effect of the seventh ray, which is its power to refine the matter out of which the forms are built. The animal body of man has received much scientific attention during the past 100 years, and medicine and surgery have reached great heights of achievement. The framework of man, his body, and its internal systems, with their diverse rituals, are now understood as never before, and this has been the result of the incoming ray force with its power to apply knowledge to the magical work. When this knowledge is applied intensively to the animal world, much new and interesting data will be discovered. When the differences between the physical bodies of the animals and those of humanity have been more closely investigated, there will appear a new and very fruitful field of study. These differences are largely in the realm of the nervous systems. Not enough attention has been paid, for instance, to the fact that the brain of the animal is really in the region of the solar plexus, whilst the human brain, the controlling agent, is in the head, and works through the medium of the spinal column. When scientists know exactly why the animal does not use the brain in the head as does man, they will arrive at a fuller knowledge of the law governing cycles. There is much that could be said, but little of it would, as yet, be comprehended. Until the incoming ray force and all that attends its entry has produced the adequate changes in the nervous system, it will not be possible for more to be made clear. Brain cells, hitherto dormant in even the most advanced thinkers, must be brought into functioning activity, and with this consummated, then more teaching and further elucidation will be possible, but not till then. Some time must yet elapse before the present human mechanisms are adapted to the registration of that which is new and as yet unknown. 3 final points I wish to touch upon. As you may have noted from some of our earlier tabulations, there is a definite relation between the first kingdom in nature, the mineral kingdom, and the final kingdom, the solar kingdom, the seventh and last to appear in manifestation upon our planet. There is a mysterious unity of response existing between the lowest kingdom in the scale of nature and the highest, between that which expresses the densest manifestation of the divine life and that which embodies its final and glorious consummation. This response is fostered by the play of the seventh ray, which produces those initial reactions to organized movement and ritual which, at the close of our Great World Period, will demonstrate the response of our entire solar system to the same basic seventh ray influence. What can now be seen in the organization of a crystal, a jewel and a diamond, with their beauty of form and line and color, their radiance and geometrical perfection, will appear likewise through the medium of the universe as a whole. The grand geometrician of the universe works through this seventh ray, and thus sets his seal upon all form life, particularly in the mineral world. This the Masonic fraternity has always known, and this concept it has perpetuated symbolically in the great world cathedrals, which embody the glory of the mineral world and are the sign of the work of the master builder of the universe. When the great work is consummated, we shall see the temple of God, the solar system, organized objectively and subjectively. Its courts and holy places will then be accessible to the sons of men, who will work then without limitation, and will have free access to all parts of the building. Through the magic of the word which will then have been recovered, all doors will fly open, and the consciousness of man will respond to every divine manifestation. More of this I may not here say, but the work of the craft is symbolic of the ritualistic organization of the universe. Of this the mineral kingdom, with which the work is done, and through which the geometrical plan expresses itself, is at the same time the symbol and the undertaking, the beginning and also the concrete expression of divine purpose. Secondly, I referred earlier to the work of the seventh ray in connection with the phenomena of electricity, through which the solar system is coordinated and vitalist. There is an aspect of electrical phenomena which produces cohesion, just as there is an aspect which produces light. This has not yet been recognized. It is stated in the secret doctrine of HPB, and in a treatise on cosmic fire, that the electricity of the solar system is threefold. There is fire by friction, solar fire, and electric fire, the fire of body, of soul and of spirit. Fire by friction is coming to be somewhat understood by the scientists of the world, and we are harnessing to our needs the fire which heats, which gives light, and which produces motion. This is in the physical sense of the words. One of the imminent discoveries will be the integrating power of electricity as it produces the cohesion within all forms and sustains all form life during the cycle of manifested existence. It produces also the coming together of atoms and of the organisms within forms, so constructing that which is needed to express the life principle. Men today are investigating such matters as electrotherapeutics and studying the theory of the electrical nature of the human being. They are working rapidly towards this coming discovery, and much will be revealed along these lines during the next 50 years. The principle of coordination about which men talk has reference, in the last analysis, to this concept, and the scientific basis of all meditation work is really to be found in this basic truth. The bringing in of force and the offering of a channel are all mystical ways of expressing a natural phenomenon as yet little understood, but which will eventually give the clue to the second aspect of electricity. This will be released in fuller measure during the Aquarian Age, through the agency of the seventh ray. One of its earliest effects will be the increase of the understanding of brotherhood and its really scientific basis. I referred to the fact that man must before long function as freely on the astral plane and through the astral consciousness as he now does on the physical plane. We are today laying the emphasis upon the vital aspect of man. The nature of the life principle is under discussion, and the need for vital action everywhere emphasized. We talk of the necessity of increasing human vitality and the vitality of animals and plants, The quality of the vitality-producing factors, food, sun and the colored rays so widely used now, is creeping slowly into all medical thought, whilst even the advertisers of the tinned goods of our modern civilization lay the emphasis upon the quota of vitamins. This, esoterically speaking, is due to the shift of human consciousness onto etheric levels. Paralleling the growth of modern knowledge as to the soul as intellect, we find a growth of understanding as to the soul as life, though it remains as yet the great and apparently insoluble mystery. There are two happenings of close and imminent occurrence. Today the bulk of human beings are polarized on the lower levels of the astral plane, but are conscious in the physical body. This distinction must be studied. Soon, many will be conscious in the vital body and beginning to be conscious on the higher levels of the astral plane, and some few upon the mental plane. But large numbers of people today are ready to be fully conscious in the astral body and polarized either on the mental plane entirely or centered in the soul. This produces the wonder and the difficulty of the present time. Through the scientific ritual of meditation, for that is what it really is, this refocusing can be brought more rapidly about. Through the scientific culture of the ritual of service it can be still further developed. The ritual of the solar system is the result of the meditation of God and the act of divine service, carried on throughout the entire period of manifestation. The subordination of the lower life to the ritual of service is literally the tuning in of the individual to the rhythm of the life, heart and mind of God Himself. From that tuning in, automatically a spiritual development follows. C. The functioning ray laws. There are certain great laws, connected with the 7 rays, that are effective in determining the lines of demarcation, the cleavages which produce separation and the differentiations of the manifested life of God into 1. The septenary constitution of the solar system. 2. The 10 schemes which indicate solar achievement. 3. The inner constitution, or so-called chains, which distinguish each planetary existence. 4. The planetary constitution of our Earth into the various kingdoms of nature. 5. The basic distinctions between the kingdoms, these produce the types, groupings, families, branches, empires and nations. These laws of cleavage are too difficult for general comprehension. They govern form life, and are the result of the united working, or rather the simultaneous manifestation, of the 3 laws dealt with in a treatise on cosmic fire. These are 1. The law of synthesis, determining the future, certifying the goal, and concerned with the life or spirit aspect. 2. The law of attraction, determining the present, and governing the immediate condition of the planetary types. It is concerned with the consciousness or the soul aspect. 3. The law of economy. This law determines the past, conditions the planetary consciousness, and concerns itself with the form or matter aspect. When these 3 function together, during this particular cycle and in our particular race, they produce a fusion of forces which imposes a certain rhythm, a definite materialization of energies, and a specific type of civilization which functions under what we, esoterically, call the laws of cleavage. It is the mind which separates and divides. It is mental activity, divine and superhuman, as well as human, which produces the many differentiations. This process of divisioning comes to its climax during this world period in the Aryan race, the 5th race. We are today governed by the law of cleavages, a divine law and one of fruitful objective. This must not be forgotten. The activity of the 3 divine aspects, in relation to the human family in the first nebulous race, of which science knows nothing, produced what we call the law of immersion. It caused that growing diversification of matter, clothing the life, which ultimately produced the early manifestation of the incarnating sons of God. It is not a physical incarnation in the sense that we understand that term. In the next race, of which again man knows little, the fusion of the 3 divine energies produced a second law. It should be remembered that a law is but the effect of the continued intelligent activity of the life aspect as it works in conjunction with matter. This second law is called, by those of us who deal with law and energy, the law of capitulation, because the momentum set up by the desire of the sons of God to incarnate proved too strong for the opposing forces of matter. Nothing then could stop the coming into tangible existence of the incarnating spirits. Matter capitulated to spirit, the divine desire and the divine will set their signature upon the rapidly assembling forms. It must be borne in mind that these laws are called by names which indicate their relation to humanity. When active in the other kingdoms of nature their influence is different, and they are called by other nomenclatures. In the next race, the Lemurian, the triple activity of the divine essential attributes demonstrated as the law of materialization, or, as it is sometimes called, the law of hidden radiance. This law concerns the light which is in man, and the covering of that light, in time and space, in order to produce its intensification and its consequent and subsequent radiation, so that, through humanity, light may eventually reach all forms of divine expression. Through man's achievement, and through the conquest of darkness by light, the light of consciousness in all forms must be brought to a condition of a shining glory which will irradiate the planet, and shine forth into the world of planets as a testimony to the glory of. The fourth law controlling human destiny is known by the curious name of the law of the tides. It concerns the life of desire and of sensory perception and of feeling. It is closely concerned with the development of awareness, and is an aspect of the law of cycles which controls solar evolution. It is a basic human law, protective and developing. It controls the cyclic or tidal life of all souls who are carried by the great river of life, on the crest of desire, into incarnation, and is one of the laws with which the aspirant must work, early in his training. Until he can function as a soul, independent of the cyclic turmoil of terrestrial life, and free from the control of the tides of his emotional existence, he cannot take initiation. It was the inability to do this which brought on Earth the great Atlantean floods which brought that ancient civilization to an end. We come now to a consideration of the law of cleavages, for our race is controlled by the great heresy of separativeness. Through these cleavages, symbolically speaking, the fires of destruction may emerge and end our civilization, as the Atlantean civilization was ended, unless the conscious sons of God can build those bridges and develop that understanding which will offset this law, thus bringing into functioning activity the law which governs the coming race. The work that the disciples of the world must seek to do is analogous to that which they as individuals have to do in their own private development: build the antikarana, which will bridge the gap between the human consciousness and the spiritual, and make the race eventually as intuitional as it is, today, intellectual. The law of the coming race is most difficult to express in understandable terms. I can find no better name for it, so as to express adequately its functional effect, than the words, the law of loving understanding. This is a quite inadequate and sentimental phrase for a scientific expression of a great coming evolutionary development in the human consciousness. But until that development is an accomplished fact, we have no means whereby to express the true significance of the underlying idea. The above must suffice. Let us now enumerate these laws in sequence, so as to gain a better idea of their relation and interrelationship. 1. The law of immersion. First race. 2. The law of capitulation. Second race. 3. The law of materialization. Lemurian race. The law of hidden radiance. 4. The law of the tides. Atlantean race. 5. The law of cleavages. Aryan race. 6. The law of loving understanding. Next race. By a right understanding of these laws we can gain an insight into the present world situation as far as the nations are concerned, and can grasp more intelligently the ray influence which, in conjunction with these laws, has brought about the various typical national units. 6. The nations and the rays. In connection, therefore, with our discussion of the rays which govern and influence the leading nations of the world, the student should bear in mind the fact that all are today governed primarily by the law of cleavages, but that advanced groups in each nation are beginning to respond to the law of understanding, a law which will eventually emphasize the eternal brotherhood of man and the identity of all souls with the Oversoul, in the racial consciousness, as well as the oneness of the life which pours through, permeates, animates and integrates the entire solar system. This life functions therefore in and through all the planetary schemes, with their kingdoms of forms, and with all that can be included, throughout our solar universe, under the phrase, form life. That phrase itself contains three great and basic ideas: the ideas of life, of matter and of evolution. The functioning of the law of loving understanding will be much facilitated and speeded up during the Aquarian Age, and it will eventuate later in the development of the international spirit, in the recognition of one world faith in God and in humanity as the major expression of divinity in this world period, and in the transfer of the human consciousness from the world of material things to that of the more purely psychic, leading in time to the spiritual. It should be remembered that, for advanced humanity, time sequence of the recognition of these expansions of consciousness is as follows. 1. The world of psychical living. This requires the recognition, by the brain consciousness of the aspirant, of the need for mental and spiritual control as a first step. 2. The world of mental unfoldment and control. 3. The world of the soul or ego. When these three recognitions are stabilized in the aspirant, then there comes the recognition by the disciple of 4. The control of the physical plane life by the soul. 5. The interpretive faculty of the illumined mind. 6. The functioning and utilization of the psychic powers, and their place and part in the field of intelligent service. 7. An inspired creative life on the physical plane. But in the development of the racial consciousness, the process does not follow the above stages in sequence. This is owing to the stimulation and consequent sensitizing of the form aspect through the increased radiation and potency of the dynamic new group of world servers, whose ranks are filled by those who have passed, or are passing, through the stages of aspirant and disciple, thus learning to serve. Psychic unfoldment in the masses parallels the spiritual unfoldment of advanced humanity. This can be seen going on today on a large scale everywhere, and it accounts for the tremendous growth of the spiritualistic movement, and for the enormous increase in the lower psychic powers. Old Atlantean magic and the lower psychism are upon us again in the great turning of the wheel of life, but this time good may eventuate, if the world disciples and spiritually focused people measure up to their opportunity. Today there are many hundreds, and in America, many thousands, coming under the influence of this law of loving understanding. Many in every nation are responding to the broader synthetic brotherly note, but the masses as yet understand nothing of this. They must be led in right ways gradually, by the steady development in right understanding by their own nationals. Bear this in mind, all of you who work for world peace and right relations, for harmony and for synthesis. A. The major nations and their rays. All of the great nations are controlled by two rays, just as is the human being. With the smaller nations we shall not concern ourselves. All nations are controlled by a personality ray, if so we can call it, which is dominant and potent and the main controlling factor at this time, and by a soul ray which is sensed only by the disciples and aspirants of any nation. This soul ray must be evoked into an increased functioning activity by the new group of world servers, for this is one of their main objectives and tasks. This must never be lost to sight. Much could be written about the historical influence of the rays during the past 2,000 years, and of the way in which great events have been influenced or brought about by the periodic ray influence. But for this I have neither the time nor the inclination. Interesting as it is, and indicative of the present national trends and problems, all that I can now do is to point out the rays governing each nation, and leave you to study and note their effect at your leisure, and to comprehend their relation to the present condition of the world. One thing I would point out, and that is that those rays which govern a particular nation, and which are at this time in incarnation, are very potent, either materially or egoically, whilst some of the problems may be due to the fact that certain rays, governing certain nations, are at this time out of incarnation. Nation personality ray egoic ray motto India. Fourth ray of art. First ray of I hide the light. Government. China. Third ray of intellect. First ray of I indicate the way. Government Germany. First ray of power. Fourth ray of art. I preserve. France. Third ray of intellect. Fifth ray of I release the light. Knowledge Great Britain. First ray of power. Second ray of love. I serve. Our government Italy. Fourth ray of art. Sixth ray of idealism. I carve the paths. USA. Sixth ray of idealism. Second ray of love. I light the way. Russia. Sixth ray of idealism. Seventh ray of I link two ways. Magic and order Austria. Fifth ray of knowledge. Fourth ray of art. I serve the lighted way. Spain. Seventh ray of order. Sixth ray of I disperse the clouds. Idealism Brazil. Second ray of love. Fourth ray of art. I hide the seed. A close analysis of the above will indicate certain lines of racial understanding. There is a natural rapport indicated between the modern and present personality rays of Germany and Great Britain, and yet a relationship can be seen between France and Great Britain through their esoteric national mottos and also between the two symbols which are esoterically theirs. The symbol for France is the fleur-de-lis, which she adopted centuries ago under divine guidance, which symbol stands for the three divine aspects in manifestation. The emphasis is upon the third aspect, producing intelligent manifestation. The symbol of Great Britain, under the same divine apportioning, is the three feathers, carried as the arms of the Prince of Wales. The scintillating and brilliant French intellect, with its scientific bent, is accounted for by the interplay of the third ray of active intelligence with the fifth ray of scientific understanding. Hence their amazing contribution to the knowledge and thought of the world, and their brilliant and colorful history. Be it remembered also that the glory of the empire which was France is but the guarantee of a glory of divine revelation which lies ahead in the future, but which will never be theirs till they cease living in the wonder of their past and go forth into the future to demonstrate the fact of illumination, which is the goal of all mental effort. When the intellect of the French is turned towards the discovery and the elucidation of the things of the spirit, then they will carry revelation to the world. When their egoic ray dominates the third ray, and when the separative action of the fifth ray is transmuted into the revealing function of this ray, then France will enter into a period of new glory. Her empire will then be of the mind, and her glory of the soul. It is obvious that the governing faculty is strongly the outstanding characteristic of Great Britain. England is an exponent of the art of control, and her function has been, as you may realize, to produce the first tentative grouping of federated nations, and to demonstrate the possibility of such grouping. The United States of America are doing a somewhat similar thing, and are fusing the nationals of many nations into one federated state with many subsidiary states, instead of subsidiary nations. These two powers function in this way and with this wide objective in order to give to the planet, eventually, a system of groupings within one national border or one empire, and yet with an international boundary which will be symbolic of the coming New Age technique in government. The second ray of love or attraction governs, egoically, the British Empire, and there is a relation between this fact and the fact that the sign Gemini governs both the United States and London. The fluid, mercurial, intuitional mind is closely allied with the divine aspect of love and understanding, producing attraction and interpretation. It is interesting to note that the fourth ray of harmony or art, which will begin before long to come into power again in its major aspect, is to be found prominent in the destinies of India, Germany, Italy, Austria and Brazil, and it is for this that there is so much preparatory turmoil in the three European countries. The sixth ray is potent in Russia, the United States, Italy and Spain. It is the fanatical adherence to an ideal which is responsible also for the potent changes in these four countries. In Germany and Italy, as we have seen, the harmonizing power of the fourth ray is also seen. Hence we have in all these countries a process of breaking down, and of destruction of old forms, prior to an adequate responsiveness to the influence of the incoming ray. It should be remembered that as with individuals, so with nations, the reaction to an increasing influence of the egoic ray is ever accompanied by a breaking down period, but this demonstration of destruction is but temporary and preparatory. India hides the light, and that light, when released upon the world and revealed to humanity, will bring about harmony in the form aspect, for things will be clearly seen as they are and freed from glamour and illusion. This harmonizing light is sorely needed in India itself, and when it has been manifested it will bring about the right functioning of the first ray of power or government. The will of the people will be seen in the light. It is in this connection that Great Britain emerges into renewed activity, for her personality ray and India's egoic ray are the same. Many British people are subjectively linked with India, by past incarnations and association, and the quarrel between Great Britain and India is largely a family affair in the deeper sense of the term, and hence its bitterness, the bitterness of an elder brother who sees the younger usurping his prerogatives. Today many British administrators are finding their way back to their own homeland, little as they may realize it, there to work out that which they initiated in other lives and bodies. As you may know, there is a close link between the fourth and the second rays, and this again emerges in the relationship between England and India, and a destiny is there which must be jointly worked out. The static stabilizing tendency of Germany showing, for instance, in her futile effort to preserve a purity of race now impossible, is due to her first-ray personality, whilst her fourth-ray egoic force is responsible for her effort to standardize and harmonize all the elements within her borders, too. The exclusion, however, of the Hebrew race. With the problem of the Jew I will deal later. Germany cannot help herself, for though the first ray is not in manifestation as we understand the term, yet the bulk of the egos now in power in Germany are on the first subray of the 7 different rays, and hence they are from one dominant angle the transmitters of first-ray force. A hint is here given. It is for this reason therefore that Great Britain can contact the German race and handle the German psychology more understandingly than can Russia, Italy or France. They share similar qualities, and one of the services therefore that England can render at this time is to come to the aid of world peace, and so live up to the motto, I serve, by acting as a mediator. A careful analysis of the idealism of Russia and of the United States may reveal no resemblances in the goal of their idealism, for the Russian is driven by his seventh-ray soul towards the imposition of an enforced ceremonial of ordered rhythms, leading to an idealized order and community of interests. Because of this, and because of the enforced magical work, some forces are present and active in Russia which need most careful handling by the Brotherhood of Light. They are not exactly on the white side, as it is called, but are concerned with the magic of form, whereas pure white magic concerns only the soul or subjective aspect. The black forces, so-called, are nowhere rampant in Russia any more than elsewhere in the world, but the Russian reaction and attitude to enforced rule and order has in it more of the magical seventh-ray influence than is the case in other countries, such as Germany, which also enforces a standardized order and rule of life. You will note that of the major nations only Brazil, Great Britain and the United States of America are definitely under the influence of the second ray. An interesting fact emerges as we consider this grouping. Great Britain is the custodian of the wisdom aspect of the second ray force for the Aryan race, so-called. The United States fulfills the same office for the sixth or coming subrace, which is the germ race for the future sixth great race, whilst Brazil will function as the leading division of the great sixth race. These 3 races embody the attractive cohesive aspect of the second ray, and will demonstrate it through wisdom and wise government, based on idealism and love. The United States will therefore represent a fusion of races, with the Anglo-Saxon element dominating. Brazil will later represent the best of that which the Latin races have eventually to give. This presented fusion will be considered from the angle of the ray types and the basic unfolding principles, and not from the angle of culture and civilization. Great Britain therefore represents the aspect of mind which expresses itself in intelligent government, based eventually on just loving understanding. This, I say, is the ideal before her, but not the fulfilled achievement. The United States represents the intuitive faculty, expressing itself as illumination and the power to fuse and blend. Brazil, or rather what that country will then be called, for the time of this expression lies thousands of years ahead, will represent a linking interpreting civilization, based on the unfoldment of the abstract consciousness, which is a blend of the intellect and the intuition, and which reveals the wisdom aspect of love in its beauty. But the period of the development of this great civilization lies too far ahead to make speculation possible. It is too dangerous for me, in these days of upset and of difficulty, to express myself more definitely as to the future lines of unfoldment. The destiny and future functioning of the nations lie hid in the present activity. The readers of this treatise are, in the majority of cases, far too nationalistic in their viewpoint, and too deeply engrossed with the prime importance of their own nation and of its supreme significance, for me to be able to do more than generalize and to indicate the major lines of progress. The role of the prophet is too dangerous, for destiny lies in the hands of the peoples, and no one knows exactly what way they will take to reach their goal. The inevitability of that goal is assured, as is the ultimate achieving of it, but the incidents of travel cannot be revealed, but lie hid in the racial karma. The time has not yet come when the majority of the people of any race can see the picture as a whole and be permitted to know the part their particular nation must play in the history of nations. Every nation, without exception, and this is a platitude which it is seldom fruitful to repeat, has its peculiar virtues and vices. These are dependent upon 1. The point in evolution. 2. The measure of the control of the personality ray. 3. The emerging control of the egoic ray. 4. The polarization of the nation. It is useful to bear in mind, when considering the nations, that some are negative and feminine and some positive and masculine. India, France, the United States of America, Russia and Brazil are all feminine, and constitute the nurturing mother aspect. They are feminine in their psychology, intuitive, mystical, sensitive, alluring, beautiful, fond of display and color, and with the faults of the feminine aspect, such as the laying of too much emphasis upon the material aspect of life, upon pageantry, upon possessions, and upon money as a symbol of that which connotes the form side. They mother and nurture civilization and ideas. China, Germany, Great Britain and Italy are masculine and positive. They are mental, political, governing, standardizing, group-conscious, occult, aggressive, full of grandeur, interested in law and in laying the emphasis upon race and empire. But they are more inclusive and think in wider terms than the feminine aspects of divine manifestation. The reader would find it useful to consult an earlier tabulation which I gave, see pages 382 to 383, and consider the higher and lower expressions of the rays, noting how they work out in relation to the rays personal and egoic of the different nations. Take for instance the emergence into manifestation of the egoic ray of the German nation. Its lower expression is that of architectural construction, and can be seen at this time making its presence felt in the new and modern style in building. Its higher expression is not yet to be noted, but Germany someday will give out to the world a sound form of hierarchical government. It is interesting to note that the higher expression of the egoic ray of France, the fifth, is already being evidenced. The scientific interest shown in psychism and psychology is a reaction to that ray of influence, and though it is as yet only indicated, the guarantee of the future is contained therein. The sixth ray influence governing the personality or form aspect of the United States of America is abundantly evidenced in its diversified religions and in the national aptitude for idealistic organization. The second ray, the egoic ray, is also making its presence felt, and we have the consequent interest shown in the phenomena and truth of the reality of initiation. The analysis of the ray characteristics given earlier can be applied to the nations and countries of the world also, and it will therefore be seen how the many septenates of nature, having their roots in the primary septenate of rays, can be dealt with under the law of correspondences with amazingly interesting results. Intuitional relations and the major intellectual cleavages are based on the governing ray influences. Spain, Austria and France, being governed by the seventh, fifth and third rays, have a close interrelation, and this worked out most interestingly in the Middle Ages when the destinies of these three nations seemed closely to interlink. The newly forming country of the United States is likewise esoterically and intimately associated, in its form aspect, with Brazil, Russia and Italy, and hence the early influx of Russians and Italians into America, and hence also the pull of the South American countries upon the American consciousness and the growth of the ideal of Pan-America. These relations are all on the form side and emerge out of the personality rays. Many such relations will appear if the countries and their rays are subjected to a careful scrutiny. The ray of attraction or inclusiveness, ray 2, the ray of electrical phenomena, ray 3, and the fifth ray of intellect are potentially very active at this time, as they are all in incarnation, and the incoming seventh ray is slowly and surely, in spite of appearances, imposing order and hierarchical control upon the planet. It must be remembered that all natural processes are rightly slow in their tempo, or the effects would be too destructive. The effect of these influences is felt in the following sequential order. 1. The sensing of an ideal. 2. The formulation of a theory. 3. The growth of public opinion. 4. The imposition of a growing pattern upon the evolving life. 5. The production of a form based upon that pattern. 6. The stabilized functioning of the life within the form. It must be remembered that each ray embodies an idea which can be sensed as an ideal. The rays in time produce the world patterns which mold the planetary forms, and thus produce the inner potency of the evolutionary processes. This pattern-forming tendency is being recognized today by modern psychology in connection with the individual human being, and his emotional and thought patterns are being delineated and charted. As with the microcosm, so with the macrocosm. Every ray produces three major patterns which are imposed upon the matter aspect, whether it be that of a man, a nation or a planet. These three patterns are: 1. The emotional pattern. This embodies the aspiration of the man, the nation or the planetary life, and is the sum total of the desire tendency. 2. The mental pattern. This emerges later in time and governs the thought processes of the man, the nation and the planet. It eventually becomes the controlling factor of the personality or form life. The emotional and mental patterns are the negative and positive aspect of the personality ray. 3. The soul pattern. This is the predisposing goal, the ring pass knot or destiny which the immortal principle, the solar angel, succeeds eventually and much later in time in imposing upon the form life. This soul pattern finally supersedes and obliterates the two earlier pattern-producing processes. I have here again indicated fruitful lines of study through which the reader may arrive at some intelligent comprehension of what is transpiring in the life of the nations in the world today. If, for instance, the fifth ray of the solar angels, the ray of mind, which is the egoic ray of the French nation, can make its potency felt through the stress and toil of the present world condition, then to France may be given the ultimate glory of proving to the world the fact of the soul and the demonstration of the technique of egoic control. The soul pattern may be translated by the genius of the French intellect into terms which humanity can understand, and the true soul psychology may come into being. Again, the genius of Germany has often in the past manifested along the line of its fourth ray soul, and through that soul pattern has been given to the world much of the outstanding music and philosophies. When this is again manifested, and the soul pattern is more strongly impressed upon the German consciousness, we shall begin to comprehend the significance of the Superman. Germany has caught a vision of this ideal. It is as yet misinterpreting it, but Germany can give us the pattern of the Superman, and this is its ultimate destiny. If England's ideal of justice, which is the pattern of its personality ray, can be transformed and transmuted by her egoic ray of love into just and intelligent world service, she may give to the world the pattern of that true government which is the genius or the latent soul quality of the British. If the idealism of the United States of America, which is today its personality expression and evidenced by the loudly enunciated idea of the biggest and the best, can be illumined by the law of love, then the pattern which underlies the structure of the states may be seen in lines of light, and we shall have the pattern for future racial light in contradistinction to the many separative national lines. Thus the underlying patterns for all the nations can be seen and worked out by the intelligent reader. It could be noted also that the emotional pattern of the United States at this time is expressed in terms of sentiment and of personal desire. It is capable of being translated in terms of true benevolence. The mental pattern for the states is to be seen as mass information through the schools, the radio and the newspapers. Later this can be transmuted into intuitive perception. The soul pattern in the states today works out through the acquisitiveness of the nation and its love of possessions which it attracts to itself through the misuse of the law of love. The eventual expression of this will be the changing of the attitude which loves the material into that which loves the real, and the acquisition of the things of the spirit instead of those of the form. b. The Jewish problem. In connection with the nations and the race, I want now to indicate to you certain fundamental conditions which partially account for the so-called Jewish problem, a problem which has existed for centuries, and which is, at this time, causing the deepest possible concern to many, including members of the planetary hierarchy. If this problem can be solved, it will be one of the potent factors in the restoration of world understanding and harmony. It cannot be solved without the cooperation of the men of goodwill throughout the world. There is little that I can say anent this matter that can be checked and proved, for the clue to the problem is to be found back in the very night of time and, literally, when the sun was in the constellation Gemini. At that time the two pillars were set up which, as all Masons know, are two great landmarks in Masonry. Hence the Jewish coloring of all the Masonic work, though it is not Jewish in the sense that that word conveys today. Who, therefore, if the facts are of such ancient import, shall say that I speak with accuracy, or establish the right or wrong nature of my conclusions? I but present the facts as I know them from my access to records more ancient than any known to man. The personality ray, the material form ray of the Jewish people, is the third ray. Their egoic ray is the first. Their astrological sign is Capricorn, with Virgo rising. Mercury and Virgo play a prominent part in their destiny. These clues should suffice to give to the advanced student and astrologer those salient points which will give him light upon their strange history. Because of this third-ray influence, you have the tendency of the Jew to manipulate forces and energies, and to pull strings, in order to bring about desired ends. As a race, they are natural lawmakers, and hence their tendency to dominate and govern, because their egoic ray is the first. Hence also the constant appearance of the goat in their history, and their teaching about the Virgin Mother who should give birth to the Messiah. In every grouping, whether in heaven or on earth, there is always evidenced a tendency by some units in the group to revolt, to rebel, and to show some form of initiative different to that of the other units in the same grouping. When our solar universe came into being, we are told in the allegorical language of the ancient scriptures, there was war in heaven. The sun and his 7 brothers did not function with true unanimity. Hence, and herein lies a hint, our Earth is not one of the 7 sacred planets. There is, as we know, the ancient legend of the lost Pleiad, and there are many such stories. Again, in the council chamber of the Most High, there has not always been peace and understanding, but at times, war and disruption. This is made abundantly clear by several of the stories in the Old Testament. Symbolically speaking, some of the sons of God fell from their high estate, led, at one time, by Lucifer, son of the morning. This fall of the angels was a tremendous event in the history of our planet, but was nevertheless only a passing and interesting phenomenon in the history of the solar system, and a trifling incident in the affairs of the 7 constellations, of which our solar system is but one. Pause and consider this statement for a moment, and so readjust your sense of values. The standard of happenings varies in importance according to the angle of vision, and what, from the angle of our Earth's unfoldment in consciousness, may be a factor of prime importance and of determining value may, from the angle of the universe, be of trifling moment. The affairs of an individual are, to him, of momentous import; to humanity, as a whole, they are of small concern. It all depends upon which unit holds the center of the stage in the drama of life, and around which central factor the happenings, trivial or important, pursue their cyclic way. Within the radius of power and life, which is the expression of the 4th kingdom in nature, the human, there was to be found a correspondence to that assumption of independence, and to that breaking away, which characterized the major grouping. Back in later Lemurian times, a group of men of high development, from the point of view of that time, and numbered among the then disciples of the world, took issue with the planetary hierarchy, and broke away from the law of the initiates. It was a time wherein the emphasis of the teaching was upon the material side of life, and where the focus of attention was upon the physical nature and its control. The old commentary expresses what happened in the following terms, and as you read the measured cadences of that ancient script, it would be wise to try and realize that the phrases are referring to that group of disciples who were the early founders of the present Jewish race. The law went forth from the inner group which guided the destinies of men: detach yourselves. Withdraw within yourselves the power to hold and gain and get. The sons of God, who train themselves to leave the world of men and enter into light, they ever travel free. They hold not what they have. Release yourselves, and enter through the gates of peace. Some of the sons of God, waiting outside those gates, ready to enter when the word went forth to roll the gates aside, were laden with the treasure of the earth. They brought their gifts as offerings to the Lord of life, who needed not their gifts. They sought to enter through those gates, not with a selfish end in view, but to present the garnered treasures of the world, and thus show their love. Again the word went forth, "Leave all behind and pass beyond the portal, laden with naught of earth." They waited and discussed. The rest of those who were prepared entered into light and passed between the pillars of the gate. They left behind the loads they brought and entered free, and were accepted, carrying naught. Because they traveled as a group, and as a group progressed and grasped, the group responded to the divine command and halted. There they waited, standing before the portal of the path, grasping the garnered treasures of 1,000 cycles. Not did they wish to leave behind. They had labored for the riches which they held. They loved their God, and him they sought to dower with the fullest measure of the riches they had gained. They loved not discipline. Again the word went forth, "Drop on the ground all that you hold, and enter free." But 3 revolted from that stern command. The rest obeyed. They passed within the gates, leaving the 3 outside. Many were raised unto the heights of joy. The 3 remained without the gates, holding their treasure firm. In this ancient writing, older than any of the written scriptures of the world, is to be found the secret of the Masonic story and of the slaying of the Master by the 3 most closely associated with him in his death and burial. Masons will all recognize the 3 to whom I here refer. These 3 were the founders of the modern Jewish race. They were 3 advanced disciples who resented the command to enter, free and untrammeled, the place where light is to be found. They sought to hold that which they had gathered and to dedicate it to the service of God. Their unrecognized motive was love of riches and a desire to hold safe their gains. Ancient tradition, as taught by the teachers of the past, tells us that they turned their faces towards the gates of earth. Their friends went on. They stayed behind. The masters met in conclave and decided what should be the fate of those who, having reached the gates of light, loved the possessions of the world more than they loved the service of the light. Again the word went forth to the revolting 3, who waited still without the gates. "Hold what you have and gather more, but know no peace. Garner the fruits of mind, and seek your power in wide possessions, but have no sure abiding place. Within yourselves, because you are disciples of the Lord, you shall have no share in peace, no sure and certain knowledge of success, nor power to hold your gains. Always shall there be the knowledge dim of him who watches over all. Always the urge to gather and amass. Never the time to hold and to enjoy. Pass on therefore until the time shall come, and again you stand before the gates of light, this time with empty hands. Then enter, free, accepted by the servants of the Lord, and know, forever, peace." The ancient legend tells us that the 3 went forth in sorrow and revolt, laden with their treasures, and thus the history of the wandering Jew began. It is significant to remember that one of the greatest sons of God who has worked on earth, and who epitomized in himself the way and the achievement, Jesus of Nazareth, was a Jew. He reversed all the earlier conditions. He possessed nothing at all. He was the first of our humanity to achieve, and was a direct descendant of the eldest of the original 3 disciples who revolted from the drama of detachment. The Jew embodies in himself the world prodigal son. He is the symbol of the disciple who has not yet learned the lesson of a just sense of values. He has been the victim of the law of light and of his inability to comply with that law. He sinned willfully and with his eyes wide open to results. Hence he knows the law as no other race knows it, for he is eternally its victim. He has enunciated the law from its negative angle. The law of Moses today rules most of the world, and yet fails to bring into life justice and true legality. The other group of disciples, the representatives, in their day and age, of the race, passed through the ancient portals of initiation and took the first great step. They came back with a latent and dim recollection of the episode which separated them from 3 of their co-disciples. On their return to life on earth, they spoke of this event. This was their error, the long antagonism started, which persists until today. Those particular disciples have themselves passed through their long pilgrimage and have entered into eternal peace, but the results of their early betrayal of the hidden events of initiation still persist. Curiously enough, this ancient race, founded by the three who loved that which they had to offer more than that which they longed to take, were the originators of the Masonic tradition. Their history, and incidentally the history of humanity, is embodied in that dramatic ritual. The reward for their sincerity, for they revolted in utter sincerity, believing they knew best, was the permission to enact each year, on the return of the day when they might have entered into light, the story of the search for light. Because they had been so nearly resurrected from the death of earth into the life of light, the great tradition of the mysteries was started by them. They chose death and slew that which had lived and which could have claimed reward, and which could have spoken the word of power which would have caused the gates of resurrection to open wide. We are told that these three swore an everlasting vow to stand together and never to desert each other. This vow down the ages they have kept. It has consequently produced that racial separativeness and community of interests which arouses the antagonism of other races. Down the ages, the Jew has been wandering, producing much of beauty in the world, and giving to humanity many of its greatest men, but he has, at the same time, been hated and persecuted, betrayed and hounded. He embodies, in himself, symbolically, the history of humanity. The ancient tendency of the Jews to grasp and hold, and also to preserve their racial and national integrity, are their outstanding characteristics. They cannot be absorbed, and yet so ancient is the race that nevertheless today no nation in the world but has its roots in that group which, in old Lemuria, had advanced so far that all its foremost people stood upon the path of discipleship. There are no racial strains in the Western world which are not offshoots of this oldest select people, with the exception of the Finns, Lapps and those nations which show definite Mongoloid strains. But the admixture of what is now called Jewish blood is not found to the same extent, and the modern Jew is as much a byproduct as is the Anglo-Saxon race. Only, through an imposed selective tendency and racial segregation, he has preserved intact more of the original characteristics. It is the realization of this common origin which has led the British Israelites into their travesty of the truth, and caused them to trace our modern Western history to the Jews of the dispersion. It is a far more ancient relation than that, and dates back into a period that antedates the history of the Jews as it is related for us in the Old Testament. The original three disciples and their family groups were the ancestors of three major racial groupings, which can be generalized as follows. 1. The Semitic race or races of biblical and modern times, the Arabs, the Afghans, the Moors and the offshoots and affiliations of those peoples, including the modern Egyptians. These are all descended from the eldest of the three disciples. 2. The Latin peoples and their various branches throughout the world, and also the Celtic races wherever found. These are descended from the second of the three disciples. 3. The Teutons, the Scandinavians, and the Anglo-Saxons, who are the descendants of the third of the three disciples. The above is a broad generalization. The period covered is so vast, and the ramifications down the ages are so numerous, that it is not possible for me to do more than give a general idea. Gradually the descendants of two of these three disciples have accepted the legends which were promulgated in Atlantean times, and have ranged themselves on the side of those who are antagonistic to the Jew, as he is today. They have lost all sense of their common origin. There is no pure race in the world today, for intermarriage, illicit relations and promiscuity during the past few million years have been so numerous that there exists no pure strain. Climate and environment are fundamentally greater determining factors than any forced segregation, except that which comes through a constant racial intermarriage. Of this latter factor, only the Hebrew today has preserved any measure of racial integrity. When humanity awakens to the fact of its common origin, and when the three great major strains in our modern civilization are recognized, then we shall see the old hatred of the Jew die out, and he will fuse and blend with the rest of mankind. Even the Oriental races, who are the remnants of the great Atlantean civilization, have in them traces of intermarriage with the ancestors of the modern Jews and other racial types, but they have not mixed well, and have therefore preserved their characteristics more successfully than have the groups of our Western men. If you ponder upon the above, and if you study the Masonic tradition with care, much will become clarified in your mind. Ethnologists may disagree, but they cannot disprove what I have said, for the origins of the present racial world situation lie so far back in the history of mankind that they cannot even prove their own contentions. All they are capable of considering is the history of the past 100,000 years, and their work lies with effects of that past and not with originating causes. 7. The ray of the ego. In starting our study of the ray of the ego or soul, certain major premises might be briefly stated and incorporated into a series of propositions, 14 in number. They are as follows. 1. The egos of all human beings are to be found upon one or another of the 7 rays. 2. All egos found upon the 4th, the 5th, the 6th and the 7th rays must eventually, after the 3rd initiation, blend with the 3 major rays, or monadic rays. 3. The monadic ray of every ego is one of the 3 rays of aspect, and the sons of men are either monads of power, monads of love, or monads of intelligence. 4. For our specific purposes, we shall confine our attention to the 7 groups of souls found upon one or other of the 7 rays or streams of divine energy. 5. For the major part of our racial and life experience we are governed sequentially, and later simultaneously by a. The physical body, which is dominated by the ray governing the sum total of the atoms of that body. b. The emotional desire nature, which is to be found influenced and controlled by the ray which colors the totality of astral atoms. c. The mind-body or mental nature, and the caliber and quality of the ray determining its atomic value. d. Later, on the physical plane, the soul ray begins to work in and with the sum total of the 3 bodies, which constitute, when aligned and functioning in unison, the personality. The effect of that general integration is actively to produce an incarnation and incarnations wherein the personality ray emerges clearly, and the 3 bodies or selves constitute the 3 aspects or rays of the lower personal self. 6. When the personality ray becomes pronounced and dominant, and the 3 body rays are subordinated to it, then the great fight takes place between the egoic ray or soul and the personality ray. The differentiation becomes clearly marked, and the sense of duality becomes more definitely established. The experiences detailed in the Bhagavad Gita become the experiences of the path of discipleship. Arjuna stands at the midway point, on the field of Kurukshetra, between the 2 opposing forces, and, owing to the smoke of the battle, finds himself unable to see clearly. 7. Eventually, the soul ray or influence becomes the dominating factor, and the rays of the lower bodies become the sub-rays of this controlling ray. This last sentence is of basic importance, for it indicates the true relation of the personality to the ego or soul. The disciple who understands this relation and conforms to it is ready to tread the path of initiation. 8. Each of the 7 groups of souls is responsive to one of the 7 types of force, and all of them are responsive to the ray of the planetary logos of our planet, which is the 3rd ray of active intelligence. All are therefore upon a sub-ray of this ray, but it must never be forgotten that the planetary logos is also upon a ray, which is a sub-ray of the 2nd ray of love wisdom. Therefore we can do this 2 ways, 1 a link to object viewer via see table or in like as below. The ray of the planetary logos. It should be remembered that our planetary logos functioning through the planet Earth is not considered as producing one of the 7 sacred planets. 9. The work of each individual aspirant is therefore to arrive at an understanding of a. His egoic ray. b. His personality ray. c. The ray governing his mind. d. That governing his astral body. e. The ray influencing his physical body. When he has achieved this 5-fold knowledge, he has fulfilled the Delphic injunction, know thyself, and can consequently take initiation. 10. Every human being is also governed by certain group rays. A. Those of the 4th kingdom in nature. This will have different effects, according to the ray of the personality or soul. The fourth kingdom has 1. The fourth ray as its egoic ray. 2. The fifth ray as its personality ray. b. The racial rays, at this time, are the third and fifth, for our Aryan race, and this powerfully affects every human being. c. The cyclic ray. d. The national ray. All of these control the personality life of each man. The egoic ray of the individual, plus the egoic ray of the fourth kingdom, gradually negate the rays governing the personality as the man nears the path of probation and discipleship. 11. Man therefore is an aggregate of forces which dominate him serially and together. These color his nature, produce his quality, and determine his appearance, using this word in its occult sense of exteriorization. For ages he is wielded by one or other of these forces, and is simply what they make him. As he arrives at a clearer understanding, and can begin to discriminate, he definitely chooses which of them shall dominate, until he eventually becomes controlled by the soul ray, with all the other rays subordinated to that ray and used by him at will. 12. In studying the egoic ray of man we have to grasp a. The process followed. Externalization. b. The secret to be found. Manifestation. c. The purpose to be known. Realization. We have also to understand the dominant ray influences of the kingdom of souls, the fifth kingdom. These are 1. Ray 5, working through the personality. 2. Ray 2, working through the intuition. 13. The personality ray finds its major field of activity and expression in the physical body. It determines its life trend and purpose, its appearance and occupation. It is selective of quality, when influenced by the egoic ray. The egoic ray has direct and specific action upon the astral body. Hence the battlefield of the life is ever on the plane of illusions as the soul seeks to dispel the ancient glamour, the aspirant is enabled to walk in the light. The monadic ray influences the mental body, after integration of the personality has been brought about. It causes the mind nature to achieve that clear vision which finds its consummation at the fourth initiation, and releases the man from the limitations of form. There is an analogy to this triplicity and an interesting symbolic relation in the three initiators. a. The first initiator, the soul of man. This controls gradually the personality. b. The second initiator, the Christ. Releasing the love nature. c. The final initiator, the planetary logos. Illumining the mind. 14. The egoic or soul ray begins to make its presence actively felt, via the astral body, as soon as alignment has been achieved. The process is as follows. a. It plays on the astral body externally. b. It stimulates it internally to greater size, color and quality. c. It brings it and all parts of the physical life into activity and under control. All the above propositions could be summed up in the statement that the personality ray induces a separative attitude and causes a detachment from the group of souls of which the personality is an externalization, and a constituent attachment to the form side of manifestation. The egoic ray induces group consciousness and detachment from external forms, causing attachment to the life side of manifestation and to the subjective whole. The monadic ray has an effect which can be understood only after man has taken the third initiation.